All right. While we are still waiting, we can just have a couple of engagement in the chat. We just want to see your, let's say, we just want to see the languages that you're using, your stacks, your language, your expertise. For those who are joining in, just drop what language are you good in, and what's your expertise in certain fields. So we can just have a couple of engagement for a moment in the chats, not please, not unmuting, but in the chat.
All right.
All right.
So perhaps
So
while we
perhaps while we
wait for our
wait
first,
for our first,
I'm getting an
I'm
echo on
getting
my
an
side.
echo on
So
my side. So perhaps while we wait for our first speaker or presenter for this morning, good morning to everyone indeed. And this is the continuation, as Nick said. And we'll be using Swanke, so don't forget, just take notes throughout the sessions on the different topics. And then as soon as a session is done, you can then go submit your learning through Sonke, and throughout the day, we'll be updating you on that process. And yeah, so we'll be starting off with the business session for today, and then we'll go into cybersecurity, and then ending off with data science and machine learning. And remember the key message from yesterday, that this datathon is set out to challenge you to be an influencer in policy direction, to look at how can you build new solutions that will help influence policy direction in South Africa, but also to build a pipeline and a greater understanding of the digital skills pipeline in South Africa. And we are excited to have you here. I will now yield back to the MC, Nick. Our first speaker is on the call. You can just maybe engage with Councillor Ghana just to check if he is ready. Thank you.
Thank you, Ndaben Gonyama. Thank you very much. I am going to firstly open again for those those who are new and for those who just came in today, we are going to have to run through ground rules first, and then we will get straight into the program of today. First ground rules is please keep your mics and your camera, keep your mic muted, keep your camera off at all times so you don't disrupt the flow of people sharing their screens, so that we can have one platform that's sharing. So keep your mics muted and your camera off. And for secondly, please avoid sharing your personal contact details, and please avoid sharing anything personal with personal details like your contact numbers and other stuffs on the comment section. Uh, don't be advised by don't take me. I share my email for you guys to keep for keeping everything going. And again, for you to be able to speak or given the opportunity to speak, you need to raise a hand only when the opportunity of questions has been opened or the platform of questions has been opened. Please do not raise a hand while the speaker is while there's someone actually on the speaker on the platform. So the opportunity of questions will be given at a certain period of time. And fair, most biggest, one of the most biggest rule that we actually emphasize. It's let's respect each other. Let's treat each other with humanity. So yeah, those are the ground rules of this boot camp. So I hope everyone has actually gotten grasp of that. Then I am going to firstly going to open again. Uh, Today we are going to be inviting our first speaker. The first speaker is actually Councillor Ghana. Councillor Ghana will be focusing on the business and treasury. This is focusing on business and treasury today. So I'm going to invite Councillor Ghana.
Good morning and good morning to yourselves.
Good morning, sir. Thank you.
I don't know whether you were handing over to me, Program Director.
Definitely, sir. I'm handing over to you. The platform now is all yours.
No, thank you very much for that, and greetings to you as the Program Director for today, and as well as I would want to take this opportunity to greet the COO of Kid Culture, Setiani Ngonyama, as well as greet all the dignitaries and heads of different institutes, both private and public sector, in the data science and also in the ICT space. I would have seen in the program colleagues from CETA and everywhere else. And most importantly, thank everyone for having thought to invite me to the National Electronic Media Institute of South Africa Bootcamp, which I believe is hosted together with the University of South Africa. And to all the participants that are part of the bootcamp, which we believe that is really held, amongst other things, to help us as a country to really begin to have all the data and all the solutions that can assist us to resolve on a number of our challenges that we face since 1994, as we began as a country a new trajectory of development. And allow me to begin the task that which we have been requested to perform today, amongst which we had been requested to give a perspective on the policy direction of the country, and well as give, to some extent, instances, what are some of the business processes that are required in order for us to really achieve what the policy objectives of our country actually seek to achieve. I would really start by saying that the South African government as it exists today, we all know for this or that other reason that this is South Africa whose creation is a product of a protracted struggle of our people since the time immemorial, and our people have been fighting side by side, obviously being led by various organizations, at the center of which, in the mass democratic movement, was the African National Congress, which ultimately became part and parcel of the Government of National Unity in 1994, and getting a right to govern on its own without a Government of National Unity for the first time in 1999. Now, the African National Congress as a governing party, obviously governing with other parties that have been elected into office, we think that it is the main driving force in terms of the policy direction of the country as it transpires today, and therefore we must begin to say what is it that the African National Congress, it as it leads all other political parties in the process of transformation of South Africa. What is it that it really wants for our country? From where we're seated, South Africa, the African National Congress has wanted a united and a democratic South Africa that is non-racial, that is non-sexist, and that is prosperous. And I think that it is important for us to grasp this particular point about what the African National Congress is seeking, to have a united and a democratic South Africa that is non-racial, non-sexist, and prosperous, and therefore begin to then understand, but to what end must this assist us, and what do the people of South Africa, in our view, all want from the South African government as it exists today. We believe that the people of South Africa today, they all want to enjoy equal rights and have opportunities to improve the lives of their families. That every person who can work must have opportunities to actually perform that particular work. That also we must be able to make sure that those who are unemployed, who are living in poverty, are cared for and are able to feed their families. We want everyone to enjoy decent education and healthcare in order to ensure a better life for all. Our people want a country where all we are proud of being its citizens, and everyone is included in our democracy and our communities, and no one indeed should be left behind. We definitely would want peaceful communities where we can raise our children in a safe and a caring environment. And I think that this must be ingrained in terms of what are the kind of things that are the needs and wants of our people in society. And I think that we are attempting to give a summary of that. But we have obviously had to overcome a number of challenges. And most recently, I think as a country, we have recently had to overcome the COVID-19 pandemic, which led to the loss of many lives and caused great damage to our society. And then definitely from where we are seated, program director, we can't forget some of the difficulties, the shutdowns, staying indoors, no gatherings, businesses closing, job loss, schools shut, and obviously our heroic healthcare professionals that were fighting to save lives alongside with all our people, and some of them also having engaged in some of the traditional African ways of responding to some of our challenges. And our people also began to use some methods in terms of African medicines. We definitely had to get vaccines, all of us, and the 2 years of this pandemic had badly had both the South African and the global economy. And obviously, from this standpoint, economic recovery has been very difficult, as we had to still cope with one crisis after the other, even after COVID-19. Immediately after the COVID-19, the whole world focused on the Russian and Ukraine conflict that started just as the world was recovering from the pandemic. And this has caused a massive fuel and food price increases. So if we were to talk about the situation in the country of unemployment, poverty, and inequality in the context of the Russian-Ukraine conflict that caused a massive fuel and food prices this definitely would have created a situation where many households who were already in a depressing situation insofar as household incomes are concerned, but now with rising prices, it really began to create a situation of really falling real incomes across the country. And it has then left the world in a more uncertain and divided place. Hunger and poverty have increased everywhere across the globe. And obviously, as we seek to do many of these things that our people want, and the kind of society that we seek to build in South Africa, as led by the African National Congress, that of trying to have a united and a democratic South Africa, which is non-racial, truly, and non-sexist, and also provide some prosperity. We have not been spared of the challenges that have been brought about by climate change that has hit our country and Africa with devastating floods and droughts. And obviously, the floods would have also caused a lot of destruction insofar as our public infrastructure is concerned, would have caused a lot of challenges insofar as rural houses and disasters on agricultural produce that were occasioned by our droughts. And obviously, in the post-COVID-19 period, even though the agricultural sector was one of the sectors that was still able to operate even during COVID-19 and therefore was not really negatively hit, but the climate change effects, such as the drought and the disaster occasioned by floods, really also had our cultural sector and many of the other sectors in our economy. And amidst these global crises, we also have witnessed the unrest of KwaZulu-Natal and Gauteng of a sort never experienced in our democracy. And obviously, we have had our electricity supply that has come under severe pressure as a result of poor management, criminality, corruption, and inadequate maintenance. So if this bootcamp were to assist us on any data, would have to be to assist us to really understand in reality the actual situation of the asset base of our country, the actual state of all public assets, and what needs to be done in order to actually have assets that can deliver services to our people on a sustainable manner. Because if we can learn anything from the electricity supply, we can definitely learn that poor management, criminality, and corruption and inadequate maintenance, what it can do to any sector. And obviously, this is against the backdrop of us having increased access to electricity to a vast number of communities that otherwise people in 1994 would not have had. And obviously, the wrestle of the different classes in society and the different groupings within the ruling class that have been wrestling to capture the policy direction of the country and therefore capture the state has not also spared us of any challenges, which has resulted in a breakdown of the state capacity in what was called the state capture. Billions that should have been spent on supporting social development and economic recovery have been lost to corruption and criminality. So if there's, amongst other things that we must be helped to confront, is the whole situation of corruption and criminalities. And these are some of the crises that as a country we have had to confront, at least since the current administration, whose term of office is really coming to an end since 2019. And I want to go back to where exactly we would have started about what kind of society, having really laid what are some of the most pressing economic challenges that we are facing. To really emphasize on the point that unity and democracy is both means and an end in itself in the context of South Africa, we seek to build. If we accept the kind of South Africa that the governing party believes can deliver a better life for all, we therefore must understand that unity and democracy is both a means and an end in itself. Thus, we've undergone a process as a country to unify the state through consensus-seeking process and establish state structures and systems through a democratic process since 1994. to the extent that as we speak here today, we have a unitary state with a decentralized legislative, executive, and accounting authority over the functions that are allocated to each sphere. And I think that this point is important, that we have a unitary state that has a decentralized legislative, executive, and accounting authority over the functions um, um, allocated to each sphere. And as we develop business models that are going to help us achieve some of the policy directions and policy objectives that we will formulate to respond to some of the challenges that we have outlined earlier on in terms of our actual economic situation. We've got to take into consideration the legislative processes, the executive processes, as well as the accounting processes, because are the three sets of authority that exist in government, through which government actually performs all its work. To the allocated to each sphere, and the spheres, the functions are really outlined in terms of Schedule 4 and Schedule 5 of the Constitution of our country, Act 1 of 1996, to all the national, provincial, and local sphere. But what must each sphere do? Each sphere must plan, budget, and perform its functions in a manner that complements, collaborate, and cooperate with each other. And I want to repeat that in relation to the work that we must do as a country, each sphere of government, being the national government, provincial government, and local government, must plan, must budget, and perform its functions in a manner that complements and collaborate and cooperate with each other, as all the work they do is in the service of the same people located in the different parts of our country. And thus the work of government as a whole has to respond to the socio-economic situation of our people. And later on, as I'm about to conclude, I will briefly speak on the IDP budgeting and PMS as process. But I do want to say that this socio-economic situation that the government must respond to, it happens in 9 provinces in the country that are made up of 257 municipalities. And these municipalities are further demarcated into 8 metropolitan municipalities, which is the city of Cape Town, the city of Tshwane, city of Johannesburg, the city of Kuruleni, eThekwini municipality, Mangaung, as well as Buffalo City municipality and the Nelson Mandela Bay, which are the 8 metros. 44 district municipalities in the country, as well as 205 local municipalities. And these are further demarcated into smaller parts, which in the whole country we have about 4,468 wards, as well as 23,296 voting districts in the country. And when we therefore talk of development that we must plan for, this development we've got to plan and budget and perform all the functions of government, working with our people, working with business and everyone else, in order to ensure that no one is left behind in the country in all the 23,296 voting districts. And for this to happen, we have ensured as a country that everyone has a voice in the planning and budgeting and performance processes of government, directly through the representation from voting district to the country as a whole, starting with the members of ward committees, the ward councillor, the members of municipal councils, the members of provincial legislatures, the members of parliament, who are given the legislative authority. So all the municipal councils, legislature, and parliament are given in the main the legislative authority, who then amongst themselves elect and appoint through systems of delegation the executive authority. And it is through the executive authority that the judicial authority is established. The judicial authority in the country that is composed of the magistrate courts, the high courts, the Supreme Court and Supreme Courts of Appeal, and the Constitutional Court. And you would note some similarities, though not very clear, between the system of government that we've created and the judicial authority, that the magistrate would more or less be like your local courts, and the High Court would more or less be performing your provincial work, and the Supreme Courts and the Constitutional Court would more or less be dealing with matters of national importance and national competency. So the magnitude of the things that these courts must decide on would be of national importance, obviously in an integrated manner. And it is through this executive authority and legislative authority that we also establish the accounting authority, which is the public administration, which starts from municipal management, provincial management, and all those issues. These are the people that really employ those people. Now, as we're about to conclude, what services and service standards can we expect then from municipalities, and what limits their ability at times to deliver services? And I've already spoken earlier on about the necessity for all the spheres of government to collaborate and to cooperate with each other, as well as to complement each other. And this, in reality, has been one of the overarching principles that have led us as a country recently to even adopt the district development model that begins to say, how do all the spheres of government plan, budget, and perform all their functions together in all the 44 districts of the country, as well as the 8 metros. So Section 152 of the Constitution sets out the 5 focus areas of all municipalities, or what we would call the objects of local government. And what we are mandated to do is that we are mandated as local government to provide a democratic and accountable government. And you can therefore draw similarities between what appears in the Constitution and really what the governing party since 1994 has also sought to create in South Africa, that of ensuring that we have a united and a democratic South Africa. And therefore, hence, the government as it exists is also enjoined by the Constitution to provide a democratic and accountable government. And I want to spend some little bit of time on the democratic and accountable government to just indicate the fact that in South Africa today, since the dawn of constitutional democracy and democracy in 1994, you cannot have government unless we have a democratic process. So what that means, unless there are elections, there cannot be a legitimate government in South Africa insofar as the Constitution is concerned. And democratic processes require an election. So if Tiani, for whatever reason, South Africans, young people and young South Africans were ever to decide that we don't want to vote for this or that other reason, that would create a constitutional crisis, because in that instant, we wouldn't be able to have a government, because the method and process of establishing our government is a democratic process that requires an election to happen. And it is because of that democratic process that enables every South African to be able to hold our government accountable from the level of the voting district, which we have said earlier at 23,296, through the member of the ward committee, through the ward councillor, up until the parliament, which all work together in a unitary form, as we are a democratic South Africa. So we cannot have that particular situation. So as we must plan and budget and perform, we must do so in order, as enjoined by the Constitution, that local government has got to then do the second focus area, to provide basic services in a sustainable manner. So we've got to plan for these services, and we've got to budget for them and perform them in a manner that these services are delivered in a sustainable manner. And one of the issues about sustainability is to deliver services in a manner that allows the current generation in all the 23,296 voting districts in the country to have access to basic services today in a manner that ensures that even future generations will have access to the kind of natural resources and other kind of resources that will enable future governments to be able to deliver those services even for other future generations. So we cannot squander the environment and squander the current resources that we have today because we are the current generation, and forget that as we live today, we also reproduce ourselves, and we must therefore be able to cater for the interests and the demands in terms of services for the generations that we are also creating in our own existence. We've also got to provide a social and economic development as local government. So people must also grow socially, and we must also promote economic development. We must also promote a safe and a healthy environment. We must also encourage the involvement of communities. Now, this is the Constitution in Section 152, paragraph A to E. And I want to emphasize this point that says, as data scientists that are gathered in this boot camp, and as ICT people, it means whatever business processes that we must assist government as a whole, and more emphatically, local government that has got a responsibility of integrated development planning, you've got to ensure that your processes are able to enable government to provide a democratic and accountable government. We're able to run elections that are credible, even using data science. We are able to ensure that ultimately the product of elections is a product wherein the majority, the overwhelming majority of our people, if not 100% of them, are able to participate in the election. A typical example that we can pose as a question to this boot camp: if when we are born, we all are registered in terms of our birth by Home Affairs, and we then are recognized as South Africans, at a particular point, we then get an identification, an ID book, because we have come of a particular age. And we have proof of addresses that we submit for this or that other banking or whatever type of experience. Why should we really have a situation where in order for us to vote, we must then be able to go online and register on IEC separately? Why can't these processes be integrated such that if you are on the national, once you come of a particular age, you must then be allowed to vote? So these are some of the questions that we must ask ourselves. Obviously, taking into consideration the fact that we've got different spheres of government that operate in different areas of our country, and sometimes people register to vote in order for them to be known by IEC that these people reside in the Eastern Cape, these people reside in a particular municipality, and this is where they can vote and establish their government in, and all those issues. So I'm saying it's one of the issues that I'm saying we've got to consider going forward, and many other things that we can really think about. Now, according to the Municipal Systems Act, a basic service is one that ensures acceptable and reasonable quality of life. And I am saying this, so as we think about how we can assist the government to plan, budget, and perform their function to deliver basic services in a sustainable manner, promote social economic development, we've got also to understand that the Systems Act currently, insofar as local government is concerned specifically, says a basic
Councillor, you accidentally muted your mic.
My apologies for that. We are saying that according to the Municipal Systems Act, a basic service is one that ensures acceptable and reasonable quality of life with regards to the following basic services: water, sewage, refuse removal, roads, stormwater control, electricity, housing, and firefighting. Now, in terms of all these services, services, can we as a country be able to say, out of the 23,296 voting districts in the country, so many of these voting districts have got access to an acceptable and reasonable quality of water, sewage, refuse removal, roads and stormwater control, electricity, housing and firefighting? Or have we still distributed these services in an unequal manner between the rural and urban communities? Because the Systems Act says we must ensure an acceptable and reasonable quality of life and therefore access to water, sewage, refuse removal, roads and stormwater control, electricity, housing and firefighting. And this is supposed to be accessed by all South Africans in all the 23,296 voting districts in the country. And how many of them today can we say have got access to that? And how much money would be needed from a budget point of view in order for us to do that particular work? And looking at our budget that is available in all municipalities and in the whole country, by when can we actually finish that particular work? Now, service delivery is limited when national or provincial government delegate their responsibilities to local spheres through unfunded mandates. Our limits as government includes a shortage of income due, particularly in municipalities, to service users, non-payment, government grants being too little, and at times poor financial management. Our factors include lack of suitable land, poor cooperation within spheres of government, or being in a remote location. Practical circumstances can also limit a service delivery. Now, I want to conclude by saying we then do three processes, all government, which I've been emphasizing: planning, budgeting, and performance. And these are done through development plans. And development plans in South Africa are done through 5-year plans. And the 5-year plans are further, in some instances, particularly since we're also getting into. So planning goes in, is further divided into three categories. There's short-term planning, there's medium-term planning, and there's long-term planning. So short-term planning is annual, which is 1 financial year. Medium-term planning is 5 years, and as well as long-term planning is 30 years. But on the budgeting side of things, short-term planning is 1 financial year, medium-term planning is 3 financial years, and long-term planning and long-term financial planning is anything that goes up to 30 years, but obviously above the 3 years. And therefore, performance has got to be done in combining the short-term plans, which is in terms of development, short-term plans for 1 financial year, and the resources available in terms of the budget, marrying those together in order to actually determine your performance targets as each government on a month-to-month basis, on a quarterly basis. And this is the plans through which you can be able to also hold the different spheres of government accountable, that these are your plans, this is your budget, this is your annual performance plan in terms of national and provincial government, or this is your service delivery budget implementation plan in terms of local government. And these are the targets that you have said you are going to do. How far are you? What are the challenges? And how can we work together to really turn things around? Now, what are the processes that are done in producing these IDPs? And I'm really concluding now. Now, the IDP goes through a process of about 4 or 5 phases. The first phase is where the municipality engages all spheres of government that are operating in that particular area, national, provincial, and local government, all together in that municipality, working within different administration. They perform what we call a situational analysis, and they do this together with the communities. The situational analysis is exactly doing what I was asking in terms of the state of basic services in all the 23,000 voting districts in the country. What situation is functions? What is the actual situation of access to water, access to electricity, to refuse removal, access to education, access to health, access to many other facilities? What is the access amenities that may be there? We then develop a record that says these voting districts composed of this number of suburbs or streets or villages has this particular situation in terms of the actual services that are there. And having done that situational analysis, we then formulate priorities in priorities in terms of saying which one, if when we are looking at the unavailable resources, must we start with first that can immediately change our situation. And obviously, having done those priorities, we then must formulate strategies that respond to the situational analysis in order for us to strategize about how do we actually change that situation for the better in terms of our people. Projects. And these projects are linked to the strategic objectives, which are ultimately called the IDP objectives of each and every municipality and the entire country. Now, these projects must therefore be saying this: we would need so much for this project, we need so much for that particular project. And once we have done that, we then go through a process of integration. We will begin to integrate the possible new sources to the required expenditure insofar as the strategies and the projects that have been identified by each sphere of government, and this is done per municipality, per provincial government, and also per department in the national space. And having done that particular integration, we then go back as local government to say this is what done situation analysis with yourself as communities. This is what we are coming up with, having distilled that information from situation analysis, strategy, and projects, and integrated it to the available resources. This is what we believe can possibly be done in the financial year and the 2 other outer financial years, which then consists our people. After the consultation, we then go to council and adopt that particular IDP as well as the budget. And once we have adopted, we then marry the IDP and the budget into the service delivery budget implementation plans, which are annual financial plans, which or annual performance plans in terms of national government, which then determine in that financial year of local government that starts on the 1st of July, what do we do as a municipality from the 1st of July up until the 30th of June in the following year. Now, what are the priorities that government as a whole, as an ANC-led government, has that we have been given, all of us, in respect of the different functions that we must perform as we deliver services? We must deliver them in a manner that assists against these priorities that have been set as a country, which is my concluding issues. That we must grow our economy to create more jobs and improve the lives of our people. So every work that we do as government, the private sector, everyone else, must assist us to grow our economy and create more jobs and improve the lives of our people. We must, as a government, improve the grants, services, work opportunities for those living in poverty. Because if we don't improve, this is the context of improving grants, the context of the discussion around the basic income grant and many other issues that are there. We must ensure that all our children have a chance to get decent education and jobs. We must build and maintain roads, railway, water, and electricity supply. And definitely, we must rid our country of violent crimes and clean out corruption in government, in the private sector, in order to set our country on a trajectory of truly building a united, democratic, non-racial, non-sexist, and a prosperous South Africa. With those few words, the program director, we know we might have taken a little bit of time, but we think that we are not really have exceeded the 30 minutes that we were given. We really do hope that we have assisted the bootcamp insofar as the policy direction of the country. What is it that we must do in the midst of all those challenges? What is it that we seek to actually achieve as a country, and that done? And we can refer the colleagues here in the meeting to a number of pieces of legislation that give guidance on some of these things, to a number of policy pieces that also give guidance on where the country is going. I've deliberately in my presentation stepped to more of a theoretical level than speaking really on the medium-term strategic frameworks, the NTPs, ITPs, and all those issues, but just to give you a frame of how government works and what is it that we seek to do as we move forward. And I hope that, if anything, my address here would have assisted even members of this bootcamp to understand, one, the importance of voting and actually being registered to vote, that it's only through that process that we can establish a democratic and accountable government. And I've also probably assisted this bootcamp to ensure that what can be our contribution in terms of our promotion and provision of the social and economic development. And I've also assisted this bootcamp in order for us to understand what needs to be done by government and how can we assist to ensure that government is able to deliver sustainable.
But I think the best way is to actually understand where they're coming from. If you understand the business side and kind of understand that they're not techie people, but they're smart people, we can kind of come up with a way. The trick is actually understanding business in them. Yeah. So yeah, I don't know. That's IT Web, Business Technology Media Community is a tagline. Because business technology, we focus on the business side of things. We're not consumer. So B2B for the suppliers and the guys to connect. So hopefully if you develop an IT solution, you might come to IT Web to, I don't know, find some clients and tell people about it. And hopefully we can help you to do that at good value. Yeah, and yeah, our business challenge is then, I don't know, using the technology to serve that. No, yeah, I think it's good. I'm sorry I rambled, but I still hope it's helpful. And yeah, wish you guys lots of luck. Have lots of fun. And I commend you for spending your weekends like this.
Thank you, Mr. Ivan. Thank you very much. Even though they say you just woke up, but I'd like to commend you on, having your whole concept in head, even though you've just woken up. That shows like this is really in blood, not just the job.
Yeah, it's years of doing this stuff. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you very, 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 very much. Hopefully, when questions arises, same as Councillor, we will also forward the questions, and you might actually be helpful in answering them. If you have time, some of them are in the chat. You can just text them to anyone. Thank you. Okay. Well, that was an engageful session. That was a very, 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 very engageful session. Even just from out of the beds, that was very, 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 very good. I am going to call again another speaker. We do have a large lineup today, so we are going to end. And as I've also emphasized yesterday, you do have to have your notebook and take notes and grasp information so that you can actually be able to use that information, because they are not here playing. They are offering like key winning informations into business aspects and into productifying your product. So today I am going to now I am going to call on Miss Eva. Miss Eva Mamabulo. She's a lecturer at Solpachi University. Today she will be actually she will be leading through us on a winning formula for a hackathon, and primarily focusing on the documentation of a project. So, Miss Mamabulo,
Morning, sir. I don't know if you can see me.
definitely we can see you.
Morning, colleagues. I'm Mrs. Mama Bolo, and thank you so much for having me. Can I plead with the crew that I switch off my camera? I just want to project myself.
Definitely, definitely
Thank
you
you
can
so
do.
much.
Oh, and as a
Can you see,
background of
can you
yeah, as
see?
a not yet, not yet.
I can't see, but I don't know whether you can see.
Oh yes, yes, here it's coming up. Yeah, you are sharing. You can change the screen to sharing your presentation than the meeting.
I did. Ooh. I'm
Open
not
the.
familiar with Google Meet,
You're
so I'm not sure. I was sharing, but I'm not sure.
Yeah, you are
Where-
sharing. Just click on your presentation and then it will pop up on the screen.
Yes, I did.
Definitely, then we all can see your presentation.
You can see it.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you so much. Colleagues, I'm just going to share a a presentation on how we have been winning some of the hackathons. This is it's not a cut and stone. It depends on your presentation. It depends on the judging criteria. And with regards to your datathon, the first thing that need to be mindful of is that you need to follow the data science life cycle. I don't know if you're familiar with that, because I think our groups, it's a mixture of, I stand to be corrected, a mixture of ICT students and also data science students. And that's how we work at SPU. We mix ICT and data science students. So ICT students, if you are, there's nothing wrong in entering a data science hackathon as ICT students, but you need to be mindful that under the data science datathon, you have to follow the process, because mostly your judging criteria is based on the data science lifecycle. So the first thing, what we usually do, we would give a background. It depends on the theme. Most hackathons or datathons have a certain theme. And if you look at it, all the theme speaks to the challenges that we face on a daily basis. So in you going into the background, it depends whether you do the background. Remember that this is according to the judging criteria. The current judging criteria might not even require a background. It might say maybe go straight to the problem statement. That's why I'm saying it depends on the judging criteria. So if you want to put up the slides, the first thing, your slides, empty slides, you look at the judging criteria. In doing that, you are ensuring that you're collecting points, whether it's 2 points or what, it doesn't matter. You need to have all the items there listed under the judging criteria. So now, this was a sample of where students attended the Teresa Hackathon in 2021. And it was a winning solution for that year. It took first prize. That's the reason why I wanted to share with you this document. So just a background, what is happening? I mean, this hackathon, the theme was quality education. So the first thing is that you can't put up this slide, the background, if you don't understand what is quality education. Remember, as ICT students, as a data scientist, we cut across all fields. You have the technical skill, but you can work anyway. So the thing is that you have to understand the domain. So the domain here was what? Quality education. So you cannot put up this slide without understanding what is quality education according to whether South African policy or whatever it is. So it means that it requires you to read. So you read and understand what is quality education. And in you doing that, you're going to map the background with the theme that is required. Here we were addressing what? Learner dropout. Remember, before COVID, we had issues of dropouts. If you look around in your society, how many people are going to school? A lot of learners drop out. What is causing that? Do you understand what I'm saying? So, and when you say, for me, when we had to read this about quality education. Some of you, I don't know, it's not only about going to class. I don't know if you're aware. You'll understand with quality education that you check at all angles of a learner. Where the learner comes from, are they eating, and you understand why they are feeding schemes at your local schools. It's still part of quality education. It's not only about teaching and learning in class. So you have to understand that. And the reason why you have to understand, you will now have, in you understanding that, you have to understand what factors affect these learners. What is causing these learners to drop out? So you can't do that without understanding the background. So now, the next slide was about the problem statement. How do you formulate the problem statement? Like I said, the key thing was quality education. But how dropouts affect quality education. So in you, what we usually do under the problem statement, we try to answer certain questions. Number one, I hope you have a pen to write. The first thing, you have to understand, you have to make the panel understand what is the current user experience. What are people saying about dropouts? What is the state saying about the dropouts? Why did these people who organized this hackathon pick up dropouts? That means there's a problem. So you have to quantify that problem with states. You have to put up, like here, barely 50% of grade 12 learners. I don't know, the states might have changed now. They barely and they reach maybe grade 12. Do you understand? So you need to put up that with evidence, and that's basically the evidence. So, and then you have to also reflect and say, okay, what has been done before? That doesn't mean this problem didn't exist before. It might mean that this maybe local government or different stakeholders tried to come up with a solution to address this solution and this problem, but this issue still persists. So now you have to check what is it that they have done to address this issue, and this led us issues that us also to check policy. At times the policy is okay, but the implementation strategy. The keynote speaker was talking about what policies understand, because all these that impact policies. But is there an implementation strategy? So you need to be aware of that. What is it that has been done before to address this issue? And the students identified that there's a problem with what retention strategy. It's there, but is it sufficient? Was it updated? So now you are trying to look at the gaps. Why is it not working? Because it's there. Is it the implementation of that strategy that is an issue? So you will try and, so your problem statement requires you to do a lot of reading, a lot of research, policies you have to read. So now this problem came up. Now the next question to answer is, why is there a need for change? Then you are simply saying, there's this retention strategy. Why is it failing? Why are we still finding ourselves in this situation? It means there's something wrong. And that's the reason why now data science comes in. We want to advise, we want to influence policy based on the data that is out there. So you have to say, okay, there's still learner dropout. Then you will come up with the aim. So now what is it that you want to address? So with this one, we realize that, remember when you come up with let's say you're looking at the learner retention strategy, you're not going to look at South Africa. You have to go outside and say, oh, but we're in Africa, but why is maybe Zim not struggling with the same thing that we're facing? Why is, you don't go far? If you don't only, you check outside your best practices, you compare strategies, the same thing, the learner retention strategy, but what are other countries doing? In you doing that, that's when it reflects on your country to say, where are the gaps? Because others, these ones are succeeding and we are not succeeding. Then you try and map from different countries, what is it that we can take from there? Then that will inform now your aim to say, okay, this is what we want to do. And that's basically led to the aim of the what is it? What is it that we want to do based on the learner dropout? So the main aim was we realized that there were no proper indicators. So meaning that when a child go to school and then they don't come regularly, it's an indication that this child might drop at any time soon. So how do we now come up with proper interventions? So now, then you go to objectives. Because this is a data science hackathon, there's no way that you can address a solution without taking your data, analyzing your data to find out what does data say. Remember, even if you know what the problem is, it is high level. So you need to convince people that are going to use your solution that you have done you've done your groundwork, you've analyzed the data, you have sourced out different data sets that you've analyzed that speaks to the current situation. You even go to an extent that when you are wrangling your data, when you are doing your data analysis, you look at your newspaper articles. Is your data speaking? Is it directly linked to what people are voicing? Whether it's social media, it doesn't have to be academic article. It can be a newspaper, because you also have sentiment analysis. You can draw data from there and say people are frustrated. People see that students no longer go to the university. So then you come up with your objective. The main thing is insight from the data. And the reason why you have to draw a lot of insight, if you check your data science life cycle, we spoke about the problem, but what is the next thing? You need to know to do what? Your data processing. What does it mean? You've gathered your data set, you need to clean the data. After cleaning the data, what do you do? And even when you're doing when you clean your data, if you have to do a proper documentation, you have to tell us what is it that you have done. What is it that you've picked up in the data? How your data was structured? How did you clean it? Did you drop certain fields? What did you do? Did you have to match different data sets? The reason why I'm saying it must be details, there are times where your presentation you might not do well in the presentation. But what they do, what I've observed is that when your judges come, they will not only judge you based on your presentation, but they will go back to your documentation. When you are using Python, when you do those visualizations, you have to write whatever insight, explain, don't leave it at diagrams. Remember, I had a question saying that how do you now explain, your technical jargon to a layman person? It's very simple. You need to explain in your Python. You explain your insights. You interpret. And remember, when you have a data, whatever visualization that you have, you can't just write exactly what a person can see. Interpret it for that person. What does it mean? What I have here, I see figures, but what does it tell me? What insights can I draw from that? So you would do that. One of the things that you should not forget in your documentation, link, because this problem, it's a challenge to the society. It speaks to policy somewhere or the other. You need to bring up policies that this particular issue is influencing. Because once you provide the data and insight, it will help them to see gaps in the policy, like I said, whether it's a policy or it's the implementation policy. So you need to factor that in. So that's what the students did there. And then they came up with a proposed solution. Your proposed solution should also reflect on what other countries have done. Good. You need to, and obviously at times they would say, somebody has done it before, what makes it unique? You must be able to answer that. You might not document it. You can't put everything, but your research will give you that confidence to say, because I've read. If they say what makes you unique, you are able to say, okay, this country has done this country has done this. We've taken this from what that country. We realize that it speaks closer to us, easy to implement. And some of the things is that they're not easily implementable immediately, but they can be future work. It's something that we can tackle. Those are things that you need to look at as well. So in you doing that, so you're simply saying that, remember the slides might not be structured, but how you present it, it must flow. So then you would tell them that in addressing those objectives, these are the data sets that we've used. And I want to tell you, with a data science hackathon, you can't use one data set. Icon doesn't work like that. Convince us, or this is a real issue that needs a solution. That's why I was saying, what are people saying about the dropouts? Go to your online, check, draw data from the internet, analyze it, do your sentiment analysis. So you have to check, and you will see that if you have rendered the data very well, your data speaks to your research. Bona, make no doubt. What you see on your data, it will tie up with your research. It will speak to the problem statement. It will speak to the background. And that gives you confidence. And then I want to come up with your methodology. Please get your pre-processing. If you check, I don't know whether the stats have changed. In industry, they say 80% of data scientists, they do what? They spend most of the time doing the rendering. This is not an ICT problem. And even in ICT, you don't start with the solution, you start with the problem. You need to understand you understand what I'm saying? So don't be tempted. Look, your science, for me, I don't know, your mentors can advise you otherwise, but I usually tell students, even if your solution will be a dashboard, for me, I'm satisfied. As long as you are going to give insight to policymakers. Somebody can pick up whether you're doing a certain platform or whatever it is, whether it's an app or whatever it is, let it come later on. Here, it's a data science hackathon. So you need to be mindful of that. So when it comes to visualization, I spoke about, with regards to the methodology, one key important thing I spoke about, when you're modeling, doing your modeling, it's you need to do that. Whether you're doing prediction, whatever it is, whether it's structured or unstructured data set that you're using. When it comes to the model evaluation, it's important. What I'm simply saying here, it's not evident. The methodology is not broken down, but you still have to follow the data science life cycle. And one of the challenges that I've seen students overlooking is the model evaluation. When they do predictions, then the model, one of the common mistakes is that your model is giving you 98%. And your data science specialist will ask you, but what if this model is overfitting? How do you shouldn't be happy. I'm simply saying that even if your model is performing well, check with your experts if you've done the correct way of evaluating your model. Whether you use 10 cross validation, whatever it is that you're trying to use. I'm not a data scientist, but this, from my little knowledge that I have of understanding the process of data science life cycle, this is a common problem where students will only focus on the high percentage. You realize what your model is overfitting. When you take it, give it a real data, it's misclassifying a lot of things. So you need to guard against that. And I want to say to you, if your model is overfitting, when you're correcting that, state it to the panel. Don't want to paint the good things. Remember, we are here to see that you have learned, you have acquired the skill. It's not only about the money. We are preparing you for industry. So if you do mistakes, not even do mistakes, here when you are evaluating, what are the lessons that you've done? Your model did this, how did you correct it? What algorithms did you use? You have to document that. Yes, obviously, when you are given time to present, it's a short time, but back end, your Python, document that. And then you do your dashboard. Here they did the dashboard. What we usually do with the students, the key visualizations that we want to talk about, where the strong insight that we feel that this is a strong insight, we put it on the slides. But do we talk through these slides? We don't go slide to slide. From here, we go straight to the dashboard, because you don't have time to explain the slides and also go. Once you come to visualization, go straight to the slide, to the dashboard. And basically, after this are just visualizations. You choose. You can't take everything, and then you have to come up. But even when I'm saying this, it's based on what the judging criteria. This was the judging criteria for 2021. What is the current judging criteria? You need to factor that in. If they require the conclusion, do your conclusion. You are reflecting backward. What is it that we wanted to do? And how did we achieve the goal? You have to put it down. I want to believe that everyone knows how to do your conclusion, but you can still consult with your mentor. Recommendations were required. Now I would say to you, even if you were not given recommendations, this thing is influencing your whatever solution that you came up with. It's influencing a certain policy and all that. Then give recommendations. Put it down. And look, even when you do future work, don't detach from the community, because your solution is going to work. If it's something that's going to impact the community, change the lives of the community members, why not? Link it, show that you are part of the community. You want to solve this. That's why even when students pick up a solution, most of the solutions that we do, we always reflect on the Northern Cape. Why? Because it speaks to us. Because why? We see on a daily basis the challenges of the Northern Cape community. So it's always better to look at that. Then at the end, what do? You write your references. Where you got the data, whatever it is, you research the articles that you've read, you put it down. Other judging criteria would say, okay, include the tools that you've used. You use your Python, whatever it is, your APIs and all that. You document that. And you don't just document it, you tell them, for this one, high level, we use it to do 1, 2, 3. If there's time to do that. At times you might not explain that slide, but put it in. Make it short and sweet, put it in. If they want your business model, put it in. It's basically what I can say in a nutshell. I don't know whether I'm still doing okay in terms of time. I will end it there. I hope I did justice. I was able to assist you. But this is one of the 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 slides that we always go back to. This is the first time when we data science. So we always go back and improve on that slide depending on the judging criteria. But your data science life cycle doesn't change; it remains the same. Thank you so much.
Linky, Retabile, your mic is open. Can you please? Thank you. Thank you, Aus Eva. Well, now you see why you always produce award-winning teams. So now don't worry. Now you'll have proper competition since now we know your secret.
I was worried, and I know my students might not be happy with me. But anyway, it's grace. God has given us this grace to learn. Why not share with others? We are improving our country. Sure.
Most definitely. Thank you for the very wonderful presentation. I hope it was insightful to everyone, and definitely, we'll see more winners. We'll see more winners coming out of this presentation, and we'll see more winners coming from the insights that you gave. That was awesome.
Thank you.
Thank you. You might also do the pleasure of stopping your sharing your screen again. Thank you very much, everyone. So I do hope that those notepads did come in handy. You have taken notes. You have noted everything, and you are on the way. You are paving your way to becoming a winner. So now I am going to call on another speaker for today. This speaker will be focusing on the business aspect of the application. I'm going to call on Mam Tembu, Kondile Mtembu from Business Startup Campus.
Good morning, Nick, and good morning to everyone.
Good morning to you.
Thank you so much. Yes, thank you so much for the opportunity again. I'm not sharing my camera, but then I will just share my slides.
Okay, do share your slides. We'll pin them to the screen.
Please tell me if you can see my screen.
It's now shading in. It's now pinned to the screen.
So we are good.
Yes, we are good, Kondi. You can take the platform. Good luck.
Thank you. Thank you so much for the opportunity again. And good morning to everyone. Yeah, so if I'm not sharing my camera, this is me. My name is Kondile Mtembu, and I'm from the Startup Business Campus. I'm the Chief of Staff. Something that drives us from time to time is a lot of things, but then one of the quotes that I wrote today was, even if you are on the right track, you will get run over if you just sit there. So this basically means that in business per se, you actually have to evolve. If your business is doing well today, it doesn't mean that you should just sit back and just relax and think that you're on the right track. You will be run over because things evolve, and especially in the tech space, things evolve each and every day. There's new things that come in, there are new things that are emerging. So the more you just sit in and relax, the more your business won't matter in the near future. I guess this also comes in when someone speaks about future-proofing your business. So yeah, you don't have to sit back, but look into what is going on now, and also what can I actually do in the business so that it can always continue and always be relevant in each and every time that we are in. So I am from the Startup Business Campus, which is a leading hub designed for entrepreneurs and enablers and investors. So what we do is we equip entrepreneurs with knowledge, with skills, with tools, and resources, infrastructure to develop your businesses. So our space, we call it where great minds work, learn, make, and connect. So for us being here at the Startup Business Campus is because we realize the great minds that are here, the great minds that want to learn, the great minds that will make good businesses, and also that will connect not just to us, but also connect to the entrepreneurial ecosystem that is around. So we work with entrepreneurial ecosystem leaders. We have the feeders, which are funders. We have the cheerleaders. We have, so yeah, we just are all around. But then one thing that we do most, we just facilitate, we guide, and we mentor for you to have like a startup that is iconic at the end of the day. So today, what brought me in here was the business model aspect in your solutions, in whatever that you want to work in your idea that you have. So we'll just start and just get into it. I hope I'll just keep up to the time that we have been given. So one thing is for sure, when you have an idea, your idea matters. Your idea is always great only if you can be able to just take it down and actually make sure that it makes sense business wise. A lot of times developers actually don't know how to actually come back to make a business sense out of the ideas that they have, of which their ideas are good, but then how can you make sure that you can make something out of it? Hence is why we have this today. So a business model is a company's plan for making a profit. First off, I don't believe there is a solution that actually can come up of something and you just stated to say, actually, I don't do it to make money. At the end of the day, there will be that aspect of money being involved, whether it's a product that you are doing, whether it's for NGOs, whether it's for people who are irrelevant or people who are actually in those rural areas, maybe who actually won't have much to access your platform. But then one thing is for sure, you need to find a way to make money so that the business can continue. Whatever you're working on can find a way to generate itself. So in the business model, we actually find a way to make profit in whatever that you have. Whether the service that you're providing is free, there has to be a way that you can make profit out of it. So it identifies the products, the services, the product or services that business plans to sell first, and identify target market and any other anticipated expenses. So now you have, just making an example, now you have an idea of an app. The app has to sell. The app must have target market, and the app will be having some expenses that comes up with it. Whether you want to prototype, there's money that needs to come out of it, and whether you want to start a business with it, there is money that's going to come out of it. So when you're doing this, you're actually going to identify all of these things. So one of the things that makes a business model is a business model canvas, which is categorized as like about 8-9 elements. So the business model canvas is a strategic management tool to quickly and easily identify and communicate a business idea or a concept. So within the tool that you have, it just makes it easier and quickly for you to be able to identify your business and also communicate your business idea or the concept that you have without even having a lot of documentations and all of those things. So it's a one-page document that works through the fundamental elements of the business, and also structuring an idea in a coherent way. So it makes it easier for you and also for the people that you actually want to actually communicate with in terms of your idea, for you to actually be able to communicate thoroughly and easier too, because already it's just a one page that has everything that you want to outline in terms of what you want to work on. So it looks at what kinds of customers' decision influence the way of your system. So it has a form of the customers, whatever you're targeting, has a form of decision making. It influences the decision that you will make in terms of your business and also your projects and also like your product that you have. So in here, mostly the customers influences how your business will actually turns out to be. It also influences how your product actually will be used. Is it easy, seamless, whether it's an easy, seamless platform that doesn't use much internet because of the customers that you are targeting. So a lot of things are influenced by the kind of customers' decisions. So yeah, but then one thing is for sure, it allows everyone to get a clear idea of what the company will likely be. So you get to have a clear idea of what you want to do, of what you have, and also how you can turn this into business and monetize into it. So yeah, I will just get down into it. Won't be much long, but then it's gonna be quite very much impactful. So we have this business model canvas, which has like a building block, looking into customers and also businesses. So it's categorized into two. So we have the right side, which starts from the key activities, the resources, and the key partners, which focuses on business. And then the other side, from value proposition, the relationship, the channels, focus mostly on the customers. So whatever the customers have, the segments of the customers will definitely end up influencing the partners and also the business side. So I'll just take you through each and every segment that is there, but then also minding the time. I'll just start with the value proposition first, which is the major part. So it's usually, because one thing is for sure, the value proposition is the foundation of any business and also of any product or any ideas that you have. So because one or the other, it comes in as a form of an exchange of value between you and your customers. What value are you exchanging between you and the people that you are targeting? So here we're looking into what is the problem that you're solving for. Also, why would someone actually want to have this? If you are solving for a problem, why would someone want to have this problem solved or something like that? And then we looked into why and also the what. So let's just come back to the value that you have. I'm just going to make an example. We have ShopRite, we have make ShopRite and Woolworths. Woolworths and ShopRite are different entities, but then they actually work in the same category. So there's a difference between Woolworths and ShopRite. ShopRite identify the value they want to give to the customers as lowest prices. They said this is the value that we want to give to our customers. And then we have Woolworths that actually say that we want to give the value of quality. Quality will be our value. So whenever you have an idea, whenever you have everything, one thing that you must do first before doing anything and before identifying value proposition, you must actually first do a competition analysis. So you look into three to four companies that does almost the same thing as the idea that you have. And then from there, you identify what they do, and then identify what makes them different. And then also you look into the market prices and all of those things. In that way, you will actually find a way to differentiate yourself from all of these four entities that are already there. In that way, you will have something that can actually stand out to your customers and to whoever you want to target this thing for. So what you usually do is we give you you just do a competition analysis for people, for customers, for products, or for companies. And then after that, you actually looked into every single thing that might be there. And then you look into, if I am to tell someone to come buy from me, where else they've been buying from Woolworths, and Woolworths have been providing quality. What is it that will make them throw from Woolworths and come to me? What is it that can actually make me have customers that are coming from Woolworths, or maybe customers that are coming from ShopRite, where else they know ShopRite is lowest? What will make me different, and why would it that people who have already been into those trusted brand want to come and buy from me? So that's what you actually need to look into. And then you have a customer segment. So customer segments are usually, who are your customers? Who are we solving the problems for? If I want to solve a problem, who am I solving the problem for? And also, who are the people that will value my value proposition? Already you have something taken place there on your value proposition. Now you're looking, who are those people that you value the value proposition that I have put in place? So now you actually come back to actually check who can be the customers, who are the people that I'm targeting. And also, one thing that usually makes it easier is not actually looking to it broadly, because one thing that will actually defines you or what you do is actually segmenting everything, and also be specific in what you do. For your customers, if I am targeting university students, then it's university students. If I am targeting people in the rural area, it can be that everyone in that rural area will want what I give, but then there has to be maybe a sort of aging sometimes. You actually have like an age group sometimes, and also a geographic location, and all of those. So you need to actually find a way to be specific as much as you can in your customer segment, so that you don't lose value, and also so that you don't sell the product to people who actually won't benefit from it, or people who don't actually need it. So be specific as much as you can. And then we're looking into channels. So this is mostly a vehicle. As you can see, there's a picture of a vehicle to them. So here we are looking into where are our customers, and also how can we deliver the product that we have, which way can best deliver the product that we have to our customers. Just going to make an example so that I know channels a lot of people actually tend to be stuck on it. Just going to make an example of TikTok. TikTok, you cannot find TikTok anywhere else except for Google, where I think it's Google Play, and also Apple Store. So it's a channel that is used to find a product. So for TikTok, the channel that is being used is it's Google Play and also Play Store, whereby you can find the product, you can download the product and have it in your space. But then for some people, they use channels like social media, whereby you can actually advertise the product also, so that people can see. It's more like a channel whereby people can get your product, but can also see the product that you're selling. Some of them use things like search engine market, search engine optimization, whereby you can be able to find those things. And also sometimes the use of websites. It's easy also to get people to actually know about your product and also buy your product and all of those things. So it's all of those things that comes in. What channel are you using? Where can people get to actually know about your product? How are they going to tell? How are you going to tell about the story of your product? to find your customers also and tell them about the value that you have. So it actually comes in a lot of form. But then the channels are simply our platforms that you can be able to use as a vehicle to get to your customers, and also just to let people about the value that you already have outlined as your value proposition. And then we have a segment of customer relationship. So customer relationship, here we are looking at amending relationship, we are looking at building relationship, we are looking at getting relationship. So these are things that can always come in form. So now you have customers that you have outlined, you know the vehicle that you're going to be using, and you already know the value that you are giving to your customers. So now you are actually, through your channels, you will be getting customers. So now through that channel that you're already customers, how are you going to keep those customers? So now comes the relationship. What is the relationship that I'm forming with my customers? And also, how am I going to be always, like, it becomes like a two-way communication in terms of the relationship. It's a two-way thing. It's not like the people always come to you, but then also you go to the people. It can be in a form of feedback mechanism, whereby you have a product, now you actually want to find feedback from the market, or you want to find feedback from your customers to say, either am I on the right track, or am I is there anything that I can add or I can expand on, or something that can be an idea that can actually come out in the product that I'm doing. And also in the relationship part, you're looking at always nurturing the relationship that is already there. In what way? Just gonna make an example. There is email marketing. When you actually either subscribe or when you actually do something, I'm just going to make an example of Mr. Price. So when you buy something at Mr. Price, what they do is they do like take your email address and all of those things. So after you have purchased something at Mr. Price, it's a product that they sell, they come back in terms of customer relationship to actually ask for feedback into the services that you have received, feedback into the product that you bought, and then from there, there is a relationship that is being built, whereby they can be able to show you some discounts that are there, or maybe give you some discount promos, something like that. So this is a relationship that is being nurtured, a relationship whereby from time to time they come and make sure that the customer is being fed. The customer don't forget about me. The customer is always there. So those are some of the things that you always need to take in consideration, that each and every customer is very much important, and you must nurture the relationship that you have with your customers. In that way, you won't lose customers, but instead you will be continuously gaining, because whatever the customer relationship part is, if it's nurtured correctly, more customers are going to come due to word of mouth, public relations, whereby you don't have to do much, but then instead the people who are your customers can now go and tell people for free that, oh, there is a product offered by Siabonga, so I think you should just check it out, it's good. And they also offer good services. So it's those things that make it easy for your product to continue, make it easy for your product to continue being resold, being used, utilized, because you already nurtured a good relationship. So yeah, and then just gonna move into the business aspect side. Just hopeful, but then if you do have any question, please do type them down. After this, I will just also just go through them, and then I will just go through the key activities. So these are like key activities of your product that are the actions. More like now we are actually doing something to make sure that you achieve the value proposition that you have for your customers. So here we ask question of like what resources are going to be used to make sure that we deliver according to the value proposition that we have. We're looking to times, we're looking to strategies, we're looking to human resources. So there's a lot of things that comes into this. I'm just gonna make an example of some few key activities that can come out into this. So you have, I'm just gonna make example, random example. So you have a Magrinya, I don't want to say canteen, but something like that. You go and sell Magrinya. So for you to actually make sure that you always have a product and always have delivered to the value that you actually have. Maybe your Magrinya has that something that is sweet that you are using. You come into these are activities. So for you to always deliver unto the services, maybe at 8 a.m. and every day you go to maybe a mine's site, you go sell that Magrinya. For you to be always able to do that, you must always, in your key activities now, you must always make those Magrinyas. You must always bake them. You must always go by the ingredients. And from time to time, you must consult, check if the customers are still happy with your Magrinyas and all of those. So key activities now come in the form of you doing it. Now you are making those things. What are the activities that you are actually doing to make sure that you deliver the product? Now you put them into this. So activities that actually allows you to deliver the product according to the value proposition which you have articulated at first. So those are the activities that you put in there. You make sure that this is a values. This whatever you do on your activities comes in, goes back to the value proposition. Whatever that I'm going to do in terms of the activities will actually make me achieve the value that I have put forward for the customers that I have on my customer segment. So yeah, those are some of the things. Either it's web development, now we're developing a website and all of those things, they come into the activities that you're going to do. And then you have your key resources. So these are like practical resources that you need to achieve your
Kondile, you went silent for a moment. Kondi?
Oh, so sorry about that. I'm back. I hope it's fine.
Okay, Kondile. Okay.
Yes.
Just do brush up and finish up because we are running on a time schedule.
Okay. Should be done in the next 5 minutes or so. Okay, so key resources, I'm just gonna make it quick. So key resources, so these are like the practical resources that you will need to achieve your activities. So you have outlined your activities now, but then what do you need in terms of resources? So you're looking at a computer, maybe you're looking at internet connection, you're looking at people which can work for you, office spaces and all of those. So these are like key resources, things that you will need to actually make sure that your key activities are being fed. And then we move on to your key partners. So these are like partners. It can be companies, suppliers, or parties that can help you achieve those key activities and also deliver the value to your customers. So you can partner up with a lot of people, either who can help you deliver the products that you have, people who can actually help with products per se, or also people who can actually have like outline in terms of the company's value and what you do. So those are some of the people that you can actually come in and partner up with. And then we look into the cost structure. So this is like where it now looks into the money that you will need for the operations. So this money, this cost is usually comes from key resources and also your key activities. So how much money? So here you're looking at primary expenses that you will need in almost each and like an everyday basis or every month basis. Things that are like primary expenses that you will need to in order to achieve resources. So like this is like the cost of key resources, and also how much it will cost you to achieve what you have outlined into your key activities, something which will make your product to be done. So, and then the last part, which is the most very much important part, is your revenue streams. So here you are looking into how am I going to monetize in what I do, how am I going to monetize in what I have, and the ideas that I have. So there is, like I said at the beginning, to say there is no saying that I'm doing something for the people which is free. So there's no way that I can monetize. There is a way that you can monetize, because one thing is for sure, your key activities and key resources might need money, may need amount of money. So is it going to be coming out from your own pocket or what? Until when? So there is money that needs to be generated from time to time that will actually have to generate its own self also, so that you can achieve what you have outlined. So for key for revenue streams, it can come in many forms. So some people can it's more like a pay per product. People can buy products, or you can offer like a service fee. You can have subscriptions. You can have dividends. You're looking at equity gain. So those are some of the things that you can look into. But then at the end of the day, you must find a way to monetize in the products that you have. Either you want to sell it, or you want to actually keep it and have some of the people come in as your tourists. So yeah, thank you so much. Yeah, if you do have any other questions or something like that, you will just put it in the comment section down there, and I should be able to attend to it. But yeah, also good luck to some of the teams, and also good luck to everyone. If you're starting a business, or you have an idea, or you have an app, just know that that app can actually formulate to be a very much big and great business. So yeah, thank you so much, Nick, and yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Kondi. Thank you very much. Thank you for that awesome presentation. Hopefully, the participant has grasped more than more information. So definitely, thank you to you. Okay. Well, hopefully it's been insightful. That notepad. I think it's now time to turn on to the next page of note keeping. We are going to jump into a little bit more. Far more interesting aspects of everything. So I am going to call today again the next speaker. Well, his introductions is going to take 3 pages, but I'm just going to shorten it up for you, everyone. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Mr. Steve Jump. Mr. Jump.
Good morning, everybody. Yes, I'm here. I'm just very slow on the mouse.
Oh, that's why I said the introduction might need 3 pages, so I just jumped to the name.
No, that's fine. Well, we talk about cybersecurity, information security, data security. It's complicated, but it doesn't need to be complicated. So I get the easy bit, and I also get the hard bit, because what I'm going to be talking to you about this morning is not about the design, which, as we've heard, is pretty important. Knowing what you're doing is key. I'm talking about the bits that you don't think about and actually become the problem. So if I press the right button here, I suddenly find out that I'm unable to share my screen. Lovely, I tested that earlier. Okay, I have a tiny error here because I have too much security on my computer. Please don't laugh hysterically in the background. So I did send the slide pack through. For me to be able to present that slide pack, I'm going to have to restart my session. So Nick, Can you handle my absence for 5 minutes? And now I'll talk really, really fast.
Most definitely, most definitely.
Wait. Steve, I could show you
Yeah.
slides.
Share your slides.
Are you able to present my slides for me?
You know what, it's fine.
It's fine.
You can take the 5
We can
minutes.
take the 5 minutes
break to sort it out. But Nick, perhaps
break to sort
Okay,
let's
Mr. Steve,
check
you can take the
questions.
5 minutes.
it out. But
again,
Nick, perhaps let's check 2 questions.
okay, Mr. Jump, you can continue. You can take the 5 minutes. Then I'll just hold down the fort for you.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Okay.
Right, let's give this a go. Right, I shall be back very shortly.
Okay. Okay. If you want, let's just keep everything engageful. I do believe that the previous speakers who were speaking are all again here. So if anyone has question for the previous speaker besides Councillor Kana and Mr. Ivan, I think we have Miss Mama Bolo and Miss Mtembu. So if anyone has question for those 2 speakers besides the ones in the chat, let's have a hand while we're waiting for Mr. John. You can raise your hand so I can acknowledge you, so we can know who you're asking the questions to. It seems like the speakers are doing good jobs in explaining everything in Thara, but let me just give the opportunity for Kondile to answer Neo's question. Mam Tembu.
Yes. So from Free State, does the Startup Business Campus tailor for people outside? Yes. The Startup Business Campus is not only for Johannesburg people, but then we are all over Africa as a whole. So for now, we are looking at expanding Africa as a whole. But then if you do have anything that you will want us to actually look into very closely for you, you can actually go to the startupbusinesscampus.co, which is our website. And then you can actually also put in some few questions there, and then we can always get back to you. So yeah, it's for Africa as a whole. So if you're South African, then you're a greater benefit of it. So thank you, Nick.
Okay, I'm back, and I don't think I could have prepared my presentation better. What can possibly go wrong? Everything you didn't think of is the answer. So I'm being followed on from this session with 2 much more technical approaches to cybersecurity. But cybersecurity needs to be thought about before you even try and do it. And those of you who've had the pleasure of listening to me before, my punchline is, what could possibly go wrong? And as I've just proved today, it's something that has a application key. Everything that uses it, including my paranoid level of security, needs to be kicked. So what we are talking about here is what is happening around your design. You need to know what your design is, what your design does, how it's going to be brilliant, how it's going to add value. So first things first, you need to know what you are trying to do. Can't escape that, because what you're trying to do is the objective of your efforts. And I was really asking for people not to laugh at me too much, but I forgive you. So what we need to know before we start working out what can go wrong is, how does it work? Everything that we build, unless we are going to be making it forever in our own back rooms by candlelight when ESCOM is allowing us, we need to make sure that there are instructions for other people to make it work. The picture that I illustrate this is both of those left-hand and right-hand parts are perfectly designed railway tracks. But there may be a problem with the way they are joined together. Did the people who were laying those railways, oh, by the way, this has actually happened, not quite as graphic as this, but with 20 or 30 centimeters difference in the join, because the designs weren't explained properly to the people who were building it. So what does your design need to be able to work? Remember the good stuff, making it work, the value, the glory, the profit, the success, what is going to make you famous for the right reasons. And if you know what everything that you need is, and you are able to explain it, application certificate was changed. It wasn't to check it. Most problems happen because they weren't thought about, not because they were inevitable. So can you test everything that works for your design? Right? Now that should be a rhetorical question, because if you are designing something, it is going to be done in multiple stages. Unless you have got an amazing intellect and can remember everything over 6 weeks, all of your major key points will have been tested and proven to work. And if you're doing it right, you can replicate those tests. They become a sequence of validations for your work. Now, after you hear from me, you're going to hear about testing software, testing data, testing for vulnerabilities, and understanding what can go wrong and how you can prevent it and automate the detection. Okay, this is quite important. You need to be able to replicate what you are doing in a reliable way. Really helps if you can replicate it in a way that others can follow. And when they reach the end of your instructions, they will have confidence that what they have is actually a working solution. Okay? If this sounds normal, this is supposed to be common sense. If you've broken, and the experience and the value of breaking something is, what did you learn when you were fixing it? That's what we're talking about here. What can go wrong? In your solution, your technical wizardry, the masterpiece, the brilliance that is going to make you famous, yes, you are masters of that, you understand it. But have you considered everything else that your amazing solution needs to work? And this is where it starts to become really exciting, because we don't live in a vacuum. We live in an environment where everything around us affects what we do, and what we do affects everything around us. In that boundary between what we control and what we don't control is the universe in which nasty things can happen, in which nasty things should be expected to happen, not because the universe doesn't like us, it's just because they are there and we need to pay attention. So, having designed and tested the environment is key. Now, we are talking a lot about data today, but we're talking anything that you build. So I'm going to focus here on code. In other words, something you have written. You've obtained code or data, and I use the terms interchangeably. So those of you who think I'm breaking all the rules, you're probably right. But if you're thinking I don't know what I'm talking about, I have at least got your attention. That's a success. But anyway, is your code secure? You have to test it. And you have to test it for as long as the code is being used. Remember, your design does not stop the moment you release it for your customers to use. It only stops when your customers have stopped using it. So consider, is your code designed to be tested? Is it something you can only test on your laptop, or have you built it in such a way that it can be tested throughout its life cycle? That's important. If you've ever looked at what apps on your phone need to be updated, the majority of them aren't new, super fantastic, whiz-bang extra features. It's bug fix. So you need to make certain that you are able to maintain and support your code, testing it and updating. So the fun part, your code knows what works. When you put the right data in, press the right buttons, you're going to get the right results. What happens when you put the wrong data in? The wrong data by mistake. Your database suddenly is delivering 3 extra fields when you query the record. To use trusted. Where are you? Do you know that every record that you're later going to consume, build from, using your machine learning, or just present to your customer is truthful and you can prove the provenance? Or are you acquiring your data from a multitude of sources? Do you expect them to have validated it and prove it to you? Or do you need to clean it, confirm it, and sanitize it on the way in? All of this is part of a reality, because the one thing I do know is wherever you're getting your data from, there is never going to be less of it tomorrow. There's going to be more of it. It could be richer. The quality could be varied. It could be many, many levels more complicated than you used to have, but your data is still inside it. So how do you understand it? When your application is receiving data that is not part of your initial design spec, how does your app respond to it? Does it fail safe? Because there's another side of this, the darker side, where it's not just accidental mistake. What if someone is deliberately trying to poison your data for nefarious, evil, malicious purposes? Could you spot it? Could you prevent the nasty thing that is happening from happening with legitimate data that you are acquiring from a recognized source that may be compromised? Part of your process. You might not need to worry about it, but this is where we need to go. And if your data does stop and resume, can your application automatically resume? Practically every day it can start again. Traffic light controllers, when they lose power, they wake up, they do a sanity check. You'll see them flashing red, meaning I have restarted. Some clever person said, if I restart, I need to have a manual safety check. And someone has to physically come and press the button. This is a design that didn't meet reality. Example of secure by design, the picture I use here is a gentleman who is actually cutting metal. And he is spraying sparks onto welding gas cylinders. They fortunately are designed to handle that. Because guess what? People expect mistakes to be made. And they have to be seriously damaged before they're going to explode. Is your data design going to be as resilient as this when something you didn't plan for happens? So, safety. We talk about safety from a code perspective in making sure that what we're delivering to people. But what happens if something does go wrong? Remember, practically every data element is a, if it's money, it's going to be painful, embarrassing, expensive. But what if that data token represents a physical value? A percentage chemical in a mix, an on switch, a level of pressure that must not be exceeded. What would happen if that data is wrong and you ignore it? Is anything going to explode, burn? Is your building going to collapse because your data is actually saying how strong concrete needs to be? What are the consequences of that failure? Remember, this isn't part of the design that you were paid to do. This is an effect of the universe around your design affecting it, either through malicious people or just because something else has gone wrong. So, ideally, you shouldn't go to jail unless you're one of the people who have criminally chosen to make a choice. But how foolproof does your design need to be? The picture here is, yes, whoever made that circular saw did not assume that this level of foolhardiness. So how foolproof does it need to be is something you need to consider, because everything that you design takes time, takes effort. Effort costs, because you don't want to get lost on the I need to be more foolproof than anybody else, because I can guarantee you fools are progressive, and you will never ever get a fool that hasn't finished being foolish. How foolproof does your design need to be, and can you move it? But don't try and fix every level of foolishness, because you'll spend more time fixing that than your product, and ultimately you are making something that needs to work. So squeeze some ideas. It's all about the questions. Take it back to that one point. What could possibly go wrong? And apply that to everything that you are working on. Your design, the path to brilliance, the path to greatness is important. What can damage your design, and what oversights can leave your design looking embarrassing with your name on it? So I've tried to make up for my mistake, not being secure enough to connect. And that's pretty much me. I don't know if we have time for any questions. The QR code basically takes you to me and my website if you want to have further conversations. But generally, my job is to make you think, and happy to hear anyone who's got better ways of learning how to think. So that is me. I am returning my screen to the audience. And hopefully,
thank
catch up in a few minutes.
Thank you very much, Ntate Jump. Wow. I'm going to say this to you. I've never seen so many hands raised after a presentation. Definitely seems like you have given them the right questions.
Well, I mentioned the stay out of jail. That's quite important in today's society.
Most definitely.
And get rich.
Definitely. Your questions will be shared. Everyone who has questions for Mr. Jump, please push them into the chat. Mr. Jump will be on the call full time, and will definitely answer as far as possible he can.
Yes, I will. And if I'm allowed to, put the QR code into the responses.
The Jump.
Thanks.
Pleasure having you, sir. Okay. I see now that was insightful for everyone. I've even seen a couple of engagements in the chat. That's very good. Well, as I'm going to emphasize on the point that you need to keep your notes. You need to keep this. These are some information we don't get in academia. So most definitely. Questions in the chat box, and please, when you ask your question, quote it to the relevant person, so we don't all answer you at the same time. Usually those mistakes happen. I am going to call on the next speaker. Oh wow, it's actually gonna be more interesting. We are focusing more into securities now. I am calling Ms. Kitumeti Toteti, which is the Senior Security Manager of MTN South Africa. Kitu?
Hello. I am here.
Okay. I wanted to say this directly to you. Kanti, is the what is this thing? Sorry. I'll put it in the chat. You'll find it later.
Yes. Lucky you getting to ask a personal question.
Definitely. Are you sharing your screen, or
you can share my slides because we've already learned what could go wrong.
Please try to share from your side.
Please try to share from your side, Gator.
Okay. Cool. Are we good?
It's coming up. Yes, most definitely we are perfect.
Okay. Thank you.
The platform is back to you.
Okay, so good morning, everyone. As I've been introduced already, my name is Gitumeti Toteti, and I am a manager at a telecommunications company that they've mentioned, and I do digital security design there. So even with regards to when you are designing your solutions, where you want to have security considerations, definitely feel free to reach out. But today, what we're going to be looking at specifically is the OWASP Top 10 vulnerabilities. I've got my handle there for Twitter /X. The reason I've put that there is because that's where I'm most active. So if you do want to reach out to me, definitely LinkedIn, etc. But I'm not here to advertise myself. So just an overview of what we will be going through today is looking at what a vulnerability is, what a business risk is, and how what the mitigation strategy should be around that, because these are terms that we hear often, but we might not necessarily always know what they mean. Okay, somebody needs to go on mute. And then
Pumza, please mute your mic.
Okay, and then we'll be going into the OWASP top 10 vulnerabilities. So moving right along, just going into the definition. So OWASP stands for Open Worldwide Application Security Project. And this is a community that provides articles, methodologies, documentation, and tools and technologies across various aspects for consideration when it comes to information technology and cybersecurity, specifically looking at development in the web space and the application space as well. So this is the technical side of security management. And what we need to consider is that there is a whole range of security risks to consider that are much broader than this, but we'll focus on this because when we are developing solutions, what we're trying to do is take as much responsibility off of the user and onto the solutions developers to secure the digital citizen. So what that means is we need to be able to develop our solutions in a way that we are keeping the security of digital users in mind, and we're keeping the security of digital users in mind, where they won't always have to, for example, be going into settings to change certain things which will enhance their security. There are things that we as people who are creating solutions can inherently make secure. So it is our responsibility as people who are making lives better to secure those solutions. As we know about information security, it was created to be redundant and not secure necessarily. So what that means is that there was a major focus on functionality over and above the security. And what that means is then people will always focus on what can my application or solution do, as opposed to how secure is my solution, because that was always the fundamental thing. But as technology has progressed, as we've become more integrated, as it has become more global, it has become increasingly important to be secure and create secure solutions to protect the digital citizen. Even the type of information that is being used now needs to be protected to a greater length. I'll give the example of, say, a fingerprint. Say you're creating a solution that requires biometric authentication in the form of a fingerprint. If, for example, a solution gets breached and your password is compromised, it's very easy to say, hey, user, please go in and change your password. But when you're looking at things like biometrics, you cannot go and say, hey, user, please change your fingerprint. right? And that is why we need to be very careful and very intentional about the level of security we apply to our solutions. Also, having said that, is we always need to consider context of our solutions, which industries they operate in, and being able to think, what would people be looking for from a data perspective in your solution specifically? So if you think across different industries, the financial sector, the operational mining sector, the retail sector, etc., they would all have different priorities in terms of how to go about securing data. And although all of it is important, they might have different priorities. So even when you're creating your solution, part of the things to think of in your what could go wrong is, how could my solution potentially be breached? And then you then work backwards to say, to protect my users, people who are using my solution, people who are using what I have developed to make their lives better, how can I secure them better? Okay, and this is applying the secure by design principles. So as everyone has said, happy to take questions. Perhaps type, what I find works a whole lot better is to type the questions as you go. So immediately when it comes up, just put it in the chat. And even if at the end we don't get the time to answer it verbally, at least we can then respond to it within the chat. And then going right into it then, so a vulnerability. So what we're looking at here is vulnerabilities within your solutions. And what a vulnerability is any weakness within an organization's information systems, internal controls systems, or processes that can be exploited by cyber criminals. Put very simply, a vulnerability is a weakness that can be used to do something wrong. There are two major vulnerabilities. Here we're looking at an organization, which would be you, the developer, and by developer I mean everyone involved in creating the solution. And then that is the technical aspect of it, but there's also the human aspect of it, which we won't be dissecting today. But as you guys are aware, within phishing scams, etc., it is always the human that is actually being exploited as a vulnerability. So looking at the technical vulnerabilities, this means that there could be issues within your code, within your configurations, within your settings that would result in your solution being weaker, and that would make it easier to access things that should ideally not be accessed. So that is what a vulnerability is. It's a weakness in the solution that can be exploited negatively. So having thought of what could go wrong, it's thinking of what are some of the weaknesses that could be presented in my solution and how can I protect my users against that. And then from a business risk perspective, what we always try to emphasize is the fact that we are not selling functionality, we are solving business problems. And business isn't always to say commercial business. Any solution in theory is a business, okay? So a business risk is taking into consideration what are some of the things that could happen that could impact your profits? What are some of the things that could result in you experiencing such a major loss or even a minor loss that it would have an impact on your profits? And one of the speakers earlier said, Ukondi, always have the monetization of your solution in mind. How are you going to make money? And that also means that you always have to keep in mind, how could you potentially lose money? And cybersecurity risks is one of the biggest ways currently that money is being lost, because it cascades into various other things like legal and regulatory risks, financial risks, reputational risks for companies, and things like that. And then also looking at mitigation strategy. Mitigation is just a very big word to say, how can you plan or consider ways to reduce any threats or risks that are presented then to your business. So we're going to go right into it and look at the OWASP top 10 vulnerabilities. So a lot of the language that we might use here might be either very technical, or it might be things that you've never heard of. But what we must remember is when we have boot camps, the purpose of that is to put a light on, so that you can then go further and enhance your knowledge and find out what these things mean. So these vulnerabilities are actually applicable to both web solutions and APIs as well. So when you think of these vulnerabilities, especially when you're developing a solution, you have to consider the fact that you may be developing a web solution and you might be developing a mobile solution. There are very different things to consider in this. And although the technical development may be very similar, the risks and the threats that are presented from the different platforms may differ. But going into it at a high level, the first vulnerability would be a broken object level authorization. So here we're looking at the vulnerability. Remember what the vulnerability is, the weakness. We're then looking at the business risk. How could this impact your business, your profits, your losses, and the mitigation strategy to say, how can you then lessen the impact that would have to your solution or your business. So broken object level authorization, the business risk in this is unauthorized access to sensitive data and resources. So I know that a lot of the time people assume that access to sensitive data and resources could only be limited to ID numbers, passwords, etc. But what you need to remember is your solution as a whole is storing other things as well. It could contain a lot of IP data that you wouldn't want competitors having access to. It could also contain information about your financials or other organizational data. It could contain your configurations, etc. And that is always information that you want to protect. Unauthorized access to sensitive data means that people who should not have information access to that data or those resources have access. And that's what we want to protect against. We don't want people who shouldn't have access to certain things to have access to those things. And how we can actually mitigate against that is implementing our proper access controls and authorization mechanisms, going a bit technical, using OAuth, using API keys, and using authorized requests. But at a high level, what that means is just when somebody is accessing your solution, always consider the fact that they would have different roles. Administrators would have different and escalated rights over and above users, for example, and users would also have different things that they should be able to view or edit, for example. So always keep those things in mind. What is a person using my solution for? What information do they have access to? Do they need to have access to this information? If not, how can I then lessen that access? We always have what we call least privilege, meaning that everybody should start with the lowest possible access to information. And if they then need more, rather escalate or increase the amount of access that they have. Then moving on to the next one, broken authentication. This is unauthorized access and identity theft, right? So we don't want identity theft. Looking at, for example, that fingerprint example that I made, it makes it very difficult for somebody to pretend to be somebody else because you have unique identifiers for each and every user that should be using your application. So how you can mitigate against that is implementing very strong authentication mechanisms. Where users log in, you can consider things like having multi-factor authentication, which means taking into consideration either a password and then sending a code or a token, and this would be on a different platform completely. So if you are entering your password on your phone, you might have to then authenticate with the second factor, which would be your email address, for example. But also with your passwords, make sure that you are using the best password policies. That means that taking into consideration that users shouldn't be able to say their password is 1234. It must have a certain length. It must have certain criteria like capital letters, small letters, special characters, etc. You mustn't be able to reuse certain passwords. You shouldn't have your name in your password, because when hackers and criminals try to breach a system, they are also very, very clever. Okay, I don't want anybody thinking that systems are getting breached by chance. There are now syndicates of people who are using very advanced methods of organized crime. And we can then use our configurations, our advisory, the limitations or enhancements that we put on our solutions to enhance security. Excessive data exposure, that is number 3. So that what the risk is there is data breaches or leakage of sensitive information. So as an organization or as a solution, you would only want information that you want being known publicly, being out in the public. And if you are exposing way too much data about your organization, it may result in a data breach. And that data breach, what we need to remember is it might start with a human. So the example of that is if you are exposing the fact that your organization operates in certain ways, 1, 2, 3, somebody could easily call and say, hey, Gitumeti, I'm calling you from IT. We need your password, blah, 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 blah. And that is very dangerous, okay? And the more information you put out there, the easier it is for somebody to be phished, because they would then trust that the person is telling the truth purely because they have way more information that they should. But from a technical perspective, what we need to consider is implementing things like encryption, implementing things like access controls, only putting out data that you want to be known by the public, but also internally within your solution development and your organization, your business, only be giving your employees and staff information that they need to be having access to. This is for 2 reasons. 1, you never know if you have an insider risk. So an insider risk is somebody who's inside the organization who might be working outside the organization to compromise the organization, but also because if somebody then breaches the system, you don't want them having access to everything purely because you haven't rationed how information is accessed internally in the organization. An example of that is, say, HR data, salaries, health information. Although we work at different organizations or are part of different organizations, we don't have access to that information because we shouldn't. And so somebody who then is inside the organization doesn't have that access, but also what that means is somebody who potentially breaches the organization would also not have access because it is correctly controlled. Moving on to number 4, lack of resources and rate limiting. So rate limiting, we'll go through that, but essentially what that could do is causing a denial of service attack or service disruption, and that's looking at how many instructions can be processed within a certain period of time. You don't want your solution to be able to, well, it wouldn't anyway be able to, but processing an infinite number of instructions, because that could have an impact on how much of the resources you've allocated to process instructions from your solution. And what happens in certain events is hackers will send a large number of instructions consistently to your solution. Your solution then becomes overwhelmed and shuts down because it is just not able to do that. So rather, what you do is implement rate limiting, you have throttling, you allocate your resources properly, and then also you must just prevent the abuse of that, but also think of availability. So if your system goes down, what is your plan for business continuity, but also how do you enhance or ensure your system availability? Because as users, what we want is when I'm thinking of using your solution, I immediately want to go to my phone, press open, and it's there. We all know how it feels to go somewhere and be told the system is offline and it's not working. And sometimes, depending on the service, you really cannot afford to have a system being offline. You have to have a high availability. Think of hospitals, for example. You cannot have the system being offline with all of the patient information, because people who work at hospitals, the medical professionals, they're not memorizing every single patient, what is wrong with them, what medications they need to take, and in what dosages. They are using the digital solutions. So if that system is offline, that means you've got a hospital full of people. Nobody knows who the patient is. Nobody knows what's wrong. Nobody knows what medication to give them. And so ensure that availability for your solution. Moving on to 5, broken function level authorization, and that's having unauthorized access to API functions. So APIs have definitely made development significantly easier. It allows us to integrate with various applications and solutions without having to develop them from scratch. And what we need to make sure is that when you are using an API, you make sure that that integration is secure. You don't want any vulnerabilities available in the API to then impact your solution just because you did an insecure integration. So make sure that you are enforcing proper authorizations, implementing least privileged, we spoke about that earlier, and also auditing access controls. And that means that making sure that the people who should have access do have access, and the people who do not have access do not have access. Imagine if people who've applied to universities or people who've worked at certain companies just had access for the rest of their lives to that information. It doesn't make sense at all. So you need to make sure that even if somebody's once been I'll call it a member of the solution, the organization, when they no longer require that access, make sure that you remove them from there. You shouldn't just be able to say, oh, I remember working at company XYZ in 1989, and let me just log in quickly and see what they have now. That is not how it should be. Okay, moving on to number 6, I'm looking at the time. Mass assignment, and that means unauthorized access to object properties. Be very careful of that. You don't want your object properties being messed with. So validate and sanitize your input data. We always say trash in, trash out. Sorry if that offends anyone, but always validate and sanitize your input data. Have your access control. Access control is the most important thing in security consideration, because what we say is people should only have access to what they should have access to. And what that means also is even if there is unauthorized access, because access is controlled, it would still be at the least privilege. And then also binding of user inputs into object properties, right? So security misconfigurations, I'm just going a bit quicker because I'm looking at the time. Look at your configurations. There are some things that you can do which are very simple. So for example, if you have a text box that requires that you put in an ID number, you can put in limiting things to say, for example, this should only be 13 digits, it should only be numbers, it should not allow characters, it should not allow letters. And because some people, when they hack, what they do is they paste the code into the text box, and that then affects the back end. So make sure, even with simple things like text box, control what you are able to put into there, configure things properly. But also how you can mitigate that is doing your audits. Audits is just a very nice word to say, check your things. Like Steve should have checked his certificate. Lol. I'll deal with the backlash afterwards. But looking at secure coding practices, please read up on these things. They change very often, so just read up onto that. It's always ongoing. Cybersecurity is a relatively new, and if I say new, I mean less than 100 years practice. So it is always developing. People are always learning and always putting better ways to do things. Injection, I think a lot of us have heard about this, but this is referring to SQL injection. The last thing you want is somebody dropping your whole backend database because you didn't put in the necessary things in place, or what we call controls, which is the checks and balances that is not something that can happen. So what you can do to protect against that is parameterized queries, input validation, preparing statements to sanitize your input, and also proper error handling. I can't stress this enough. If you have an error and your user can't access something, what you need to be saying is, sorry, error 404, page not found, or whatever the case is. The last thing you want to say is, error, this database in this version of this program is not working, because that puts way more information out there than you should be putting. So make sure that your error messages are only communicating what the error is, not necessarily where it's coming from and why it's an error and things like that. Improper asset management. So what we say about this is, you can't protect what you don't know you have. Always make sure that you know what all your assets are, okay? You can't protect unauthorized access to sensitive assets if you don't know that those are your assets. So every time you're using certain tools, certain APIs, and you're creating certain solutions, keep an inventory of that, so that when you do your checks and balances of your security, you check through everything. Okay, so what that means you should do is maintaining an inventory of your API assets, using your proper authentication, and reviewing and updating your access controls. I can't emphasize how important it is to always do your checks and balances. And then insufficient logging and monitoring, that would result in your delayed detection of security incidents. This one, even big corporations still have trouble with. So if it's something you're unable to do right now, don't worry about it, but know about it and always try to implement it. So what this means is, if there's weird behavior on your application, it should create a trigger. So for example, if there are an unusually large number of instructions coming through, it should trigger so that you can do something about it before the application fails. But also the consideration of that is, if something does go wrong, you can always check where it went wrong, because you were logging changes and you were monitoring what's happening on the solution. And the risk there is the late detection of security incidents. And what we always say about security incidents is, the longer the system is offline, the more money you are losing. So always look at it from that aspect. And how we can mitigate against that is implementing comprehensive logging. Monitor your logs. When changes are done, it must be tracked. And then also looking for suspicious activity and establishing incident response procedures. What an incident response procedure is if something does happen that is wrong within the organization, what are the considerations of what could go wrong, as Steve has said, but also how you can then fix against that. So I will now say, are there any questions? But what I'll request is that if you do have questions, please just type them in the chat and I will answer them there. Otherwise, please feel free to reach out to me at any time on Twitter /X or any of the other platforms. And I'm happy to answer your questions. So thank you so much for giving me your time. Thank you so much for giving me your ears. I hope you've learned something new. I hope I haven't confused you too much, but I think the next session as well will give a bit more emphasis on how you can actually go about implementing these things. So thank you so much, everyone.
Thank you, Kitu. Thank you very much. That was very insightful. My biggest insightful today that I've learned that cybersecurity people have trust issues, but it's fine.
Yes, there is actually a whole concept called zero trust in security, which is the most important thing. But we'll have another bootcamp for that.
Definitely. Thank you, Kitu. Your questions will be available in the chats. To definitely, you can keep tabs on the chats. If not, I'll also redirect some of them directly to you.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, well, since she confirmed it, it's true that cybersecurity people have trust issues, but it's a good way of keeping everything secured. So, as she mentioned, a lot of aspects that you have to actually focus into as a person who's developing. So, yeah, let's start. Let's start with the questions. So, the first question is, what are the key features of cybersecurity? What are the key features of cybersecurity? And what are the key features of cybersecurity? turn a new page. We are going to call on another speaker. Hopefully, he's going to add, well, threefold of what's been added today in terms of security. So I am going to call on Mr. Bernard Mashala. Bernard Mashala is an operation specialist and endpoint security. This session is going to tell you about web application security, how to secure your websites. So you're going to learn more about that today. So Tate Mashala.
All right, Nick, thank you very much. Please do advise if you can see my screen by the show of thumbs up.
I'm still searching for it. Oh, wait a minute. Kitu, can you unshare your screen, please?
I think it's my...
Yeah, definitely now I've pinned your screen. Your screen is pinned, sir.
All right. Thank you very much for the opportunity, Nick. I go by the name of Bernard Mashala. So the topic that I'll be covering today is the web application security. As you can see within my name, there's actually at Dead by a Rock. That's where you can actually find me. And about me, as you can see, the picture is even showing there's me. It means that I have security concerns. I mean, I'm very insecure, or I cannot be convinced easily. So it means that on anything and everything that you are saying, I still have to validate if whether what you're saying, the integrity of it, is it actually the truth, or is it actually you trying to walk around me. But without wasting any time, just keep the picture that is currently being displayed in your mind, because most of the topics that I'll be touching on and the insights of them, they will be covering such. So moving along is that an overview of my presentation is as follows. The first will be the web security. What is web security? So I'll just be diving into the presentation itself so that we can make sure that we align with an overview of what I am presenting today. So first of all, what is a web application security? I'm sure many of you have been designing solutions every day, delivering on different types of solutions, but many we are delivering such solutions without knowing the functionality of the solution, or without knowing whether this such system are safer, in a sense whereby if today there will be a pen test, the integrity of how you have a solution, what are they going to be finding? So in this case, the whole general word for this is a collection of security controls that should be placed to protect your assets. Your assets, I'm referring to any workloads that you'll be having within your application for any type of the vulnerabilities or any malicious agents. Overall, as you can see, is basically safeguarding your web application. So it is protecting. Both are the same words of protecting and safeguarding. Is actually the same word. However, without us actually wasting more time of what web application security is, it is not only about what it is, it's about also on how you can follow such practice and such measures to have a successful secure development practice, right? All right, what is its importance? The importance of it is obviously to protect whatever that is coming to the application. It could be any type of the request, as the previous speaker have alluded to say, the attacker may be sending a lot of attacks, a lot of entry into your system. That alone, it can either do the following: it can disrupt your solution from performing at its best capacity. And as again I've mentioned, that many entries into the system can confuse the web servers or the web databases. I mean the web applications databases, and the vulnerabilities that comes with such errors that could happen during the many types of requests being sent into the web application, right? But its purpose of this web application security is to ensure that such detection, it is done on time, and that is done through a regular assessment to identify such weaknesses of the system. We are detecting such vulnerabilities, but how are we detecting such vulnerabilities? Because you can detect your own your vulnerabilities. However, how can you do that? Can you perhaps an awareness for developing such secure code practices, and also overall ensuring that such practice that is being followed, it is adhered, and also being following certain practice within the software lifecycle. How are we going to be doing such practices? We are going to be doing them through doing the checks, and such checks will actually assist us in identifying the risks that comes with the developed applications. So first of all, we are going to be going into the checks. So the checks are as follows. I will, however, be diving deeper on each and every of the checks to ensure that such information that you need to make sure that the data that you are capturing into your database or into your application is as secure as it could be, right? The first check that you go to your application is the data protection. We all know that within South Africa, POPIA, called POPI Act. So you need to ensure that such information that is entering into your application, it could be your ID, as my previous presenter alluded to that. Could be the ID information, the address information. So how are you going to make sure that such information it is actually safer when it enters to the database? You are going to be encrypting such data. So in most times when I'll be talking to the data scientists or perhaps hackers, I would say that do ensure that before the data enters the database, it is secured in a manner whereby should your database be hacked, the hacker will not be able to take any information within that database. And the second one, which is being a broken authentication. A broken authentication could mean many things. It could be an easy password. It could be that we had a developer that decided to say, my application works better when it has the password or the credentials within the code, which is a very bad practice, because anyone and everyone that can manage to inject into your system, it means that the password that you have embedded within your code is going to be compromised. So therefore, such should be avoided at all cost. That's how you can prevent such. So such can be avoided by making the use of OAuth, open authentication, whereby within your back end of your server, you can decide to say, am I allowing this such application to be having access to my resources? The third one being access control. My colleague did elaborate on the access control and the practice of the least privilege. So this is done again by making sure that there is segregation of duties. When I mean segregation of duties, I'll give an example as geek culture. You cannot have the rest of the colleagues from geek culture to have administrative permissions to all the systems. That is a bad practice. Instead, you only ensure that only the people that are supposed to be getting such permissions, they get such permissions, and according to their line of, if one account is compromised, the entire organization can be compromised. So therefore, do ensure that you implement the access control system, and also have access reviews after every 12 months to check if whether the certain colleagues have not moved from a certain position to another. The third one being configuration, and fourth one, apologies, configuration and operations. So this is where you ensuring that your infrastructure is hardened. So when I'm referring to your infrastructure, every application before it can be deployed, it first starts by having it could be an environment. I'll give an example of the Azure environment or Google services or Amazon, whatever that is. You need to make sure that if you are having a hybrid environment, such or your application doesn't have environment is hardened. The internet is not public facing. By that you harden such. All right. And also, I'll just be moving very fast. I won't be giving any example on each of the checks that you need to be doing. So error and logging, handling and logging. So this is where you need to make sure that all the administrators, you log all of their log. Should anything happen, you know that you still have to go back and check which administrator did what. Input and output handling. So this, you need to make sure that you're preventing insecure deserialization. So this is by making sure that you reject any serialized object from unknown sources. And session management. So you're going to be having a absolute session timeout, whereby if users are not active, you make sure that they are timed out. They are required to log with. About the security tools can actually be the best. Are these tools really the best? Or the answer is all the tools can do the work as long as they are configured properly or at their best capacity. And remember again that configuring the tools, that such tools are not, there is still usability even though the security controls are hardened. Or moving on to the security tools and the that you can be using, starting with the static application security. So I won't be going every security tool, but instead I'll elaborate what static application security testing is. So this is the type of the method that you're going to be using to analyze your source code to check if whether there are any injection flows. So this is the type of tools that you're going to be using to mitigate like the type of attacks like cross-site scripting and also SQL injection. So I won't be going into the examples because of time. Of how your open source application are. So this will be including like such things as the vulnerabilities and vulnerabilities or such which occurred within such open source applications. So I'll be also be moving again to the dynamic application testing. So this is when by these tools you're using them to make sure if there are any possible security vulnerabilities. So such you can use them for public facing applications, more like application systems like your take a lot. I'm just giving an example, or applications online, they are public facing, right? And then web dynamic application testing. So dynamic is whereby such vulnerabilities are being actively checked to check if maybe there are new vulnerabilities detected within the application that you have developed. So web application firewall. So there are new of such firewalls, which one of them is like your new generation firewalls. I'll give one example whereby you have developed a certain application, but then now you don't want such attackers to be having the type of information that is within your application. So you're going to be putting your web application behind the firewall so that when the hackers are hitting your application with multiple entries, they are actually hitting the firewall that you have within. So you can also decide whether which country or which workstation, if it's an internal application, can actually connect to such application. So web application and API protection. So these are the type of cloud web applications whereby they always prevent since certain APIs can have access to sensitive information, so it prevents hackers from accessing any type of permissions from the user sites, especially where the user has consented to say such application read-write permissions. Runtime application, as my previous speaker had given example, that there are certain website or certain organizations that do not deserve to be offline, which these are type of the tools that are going to be in favor for such, whereby should your application be attacked, you can still run your application. However, how is that be done? So this, it always runs in the background to check if there are any type of zero-day vulnerabilities. So zero-day vulnerabilities are those type of applications whereby the software owners, they don't know what could actually happen. They don't have any mitigation controls in place to ensure that such are mitigated, right? And lastly but not least, the API gateway. So this will be your servers where you're placing them to make sure that they secure and they reroute any type of the permissions before they can get into your API or services. By that, you are limiting certain access, or you can maybe decide to say, I don't want you to have read-write access to certain fields that the user have consented to, right? And that brings me to the end of my presentation. I would leave the hackers and the data scientists with the last words of attack is the secret of defense, and defense is the plan of the attack. So what this basically means is that in order for you to beat a cyber criminal, you need to be thinking like one. But thinking like one, it doesn't mean that you have to apply a certain practice. Because if you are thinking like such, cyber criminal, you are going to be know what is their next step in terms of like breaching into your system. So what I can say, what I learned from this presentation that I've done is that um, you need to start thinking like how our enemies are thinking like, so that you can see their next step of how are they going to be uh, hacking into our system. By doing that, you obviously have to go through the vulnerability scan to ensure that all the recommendations that you are given within your vulnerability results are mitigated and they are not left unresolved. Without wasting any more time, thank you for the opportunity, NEMISA, and thank you again, Kitacha, for the opportunity. And lastly, thank you, Nisa, for the opportunity and hosting. Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Mashala. Thank you very, very, very much for that insightful presentation. To show that it was very, very, very insightful, this presentation. You even have Miss Mama Bolo on her feet and in great. So it really shows that this was actually an awesome presentation. Thank you very much, Mr. Mashala. You can turn to her question in the chat site. So yeah, so that she can actually be answered. I do think that's fairly requireable of an answer. Okay. I do hope that those notepads and pens are working. You have actually been able to take quite a lot of notes on this. This was from the morning till now. I do think that you now have a new perspective of looking at things. So let's just hope that we all don't have thick skulls like I do, because when it comes to cybersecurity, I have a very, very hard skull. I'm like Mr. Mashala saying he's hard to be convinced. But yeah, let's accept good information, and let's accept knowledge, and let's be teachable. Okay, I know that we cannot go on all day speaking and everything, so we do have to, take a break and digest the information, and make sense of the whole thing that we have been told about, make sense of the whole information, and make it to actually be understandable to us, because we all have a ways of making ourselves understand. So I am going to allow us to take a break. To take at least two hours of a break.
No,
Nick, no.
One more session.
Oh, why am I forgetting another session? I'm going to give you 2 minutes to keep pouring your questions. 2 minutes. You pour in questions for Mr. Jam, Kitumeti, Miss Mtembu, Miss Eva, and Bernard. You only get just these 2 minutes for everyone to check on your notes and pour questions in for everyone, so that you can be cleared on everything that you're taking, that information that you're taking. So okay. Yeah, the 2 minutes begin now. Pour in questions or raise a hand. I'll not raise a hand, just pour in your questions in the chat, and while everyone is still fresh and open their toes, they can definitely answer to you. Okay, I do have another speaker. Oh yes, we have another insightful session with. Well, let me start by introduction of some other few things. The speaker is a principal in AI engineering at Standard Bank. He's going to be showing us. He's going to be leading us.
The
next. Tiani, let me offer you the platform for just 2 seconds, and let me rearrange Let me rearrange first.
Limpopo focus. So our next presenter is our sister in cyber law, Ms. Doreen Mukwena. She is one of the key players within the ecosystem and a novelist in terms of data privacy policy, digital forensic, internet governance, and all things awesome. Doreen, if you could please start to take the stage. Shaka?
Hi guys. Hi. Sorry for that. I'm just having a system glitch. Hey, happy Saturday, and I see that Nick doesn't want to have me present here. I don't know what I've done to him, but anyway, I'm so happy to be here, guys. The last time I saw the Datathon Geeks was last year, and I hope that we're going to win and we're going to provide solutions that are going to be scalable, and we're going to make so much money, and we're going to help improve the ecosystem. So today I will be talking about data privacy, and much respect to everybody who spoke about protecting the system itself, but today I'll be speaking about protecting the user, the individual who's consuming your solution. So if I can be allowed to share my screen.
Yes,
you are.
Okay, just a second. Okay, just a second. Okay, please confirm if you can see my screen. Can you guys see my screen?
Yes, ma'am.
Oh.
Yes, ma'am.
All right then. So. All right. Okay, I'm not too certain what you guys can see, but I'm actually looking at the first page, which is the NEMISA Datathon Virtual Bootcamp. Is that what we all seeing?
Yebo.
All right. All right. So, like I said, today we're going to be deep diving into data privacy. I know since data privacy is a crucial area of data protection, which seems to concern the proper handling of sensitive data, including notable data such as your user information, health records, and card payment details. It's very crucial for us to actually talk about how do we then protect the data subject, avoid things like violations, being fines and stuff like that, and not being friends with the information regulator. So we have to take a look at what are the compliance, the regulations, and the privacy standards that seek to protect the user. So today, we're going to be looking at the compliance obligations. Please confirm if you can see it, because my system today, can you see the second page, which is compliance obligations?
No.
No.
I know you're using a
You should
move to a serious device.
A second.
I know you're using a MacBook. You should move to a serious device.
Yeah. Right. Alrighty. Okay, are we good now? Can you guys see the second screen?
Yes, we can see it.
Yes, we can see it.
All right, thank you so much, guys, and I'm so sorry about that. So we're going to be looking at the compliance obligations, when it comes to data protection. So it's very crucial for us, system architectures and geeks and developers to actually build systems which are secure and part of compliance and regulations. So I'm going to be looking at building that system when it comes to how you ascertain that it's safe and it's resilient and no one can actually get into your system and and use unauthorized access to publish data. So we do have specific regulations that have come into play during the years. So 2018 we had GDPR come into action. So GDPR is actually meant to protect data subjects, data enablers. So we have two types of people with that their data are subject, which is the identifiable data. So you're looking at your name, your address, your cell phone number, and you're looking at your card details, and you're looking at your health records. So that's actually personal information or personal information identifiers. So what GDPR to accomplish was to make sure that we do have practices that secure that data against unauthorized use. And we also have African version of GDPR, which is the Papaya Act as well, which aims to seek relief against unauthorized access and how data is actually processed and acquired and stored, and we're going to be deep diving again into the right to be forgotten, which is really not that big in SA, but let's just hope that probably by 2025 we're going to have proper compliance strategies when it comes to net neutrality, which is the right to be forgotten. So today I wanted to talk about the CIA trial. So the CIA trial seeks to talk about confidentiality, integrity, and availability when it comes to the information security. So now when it comes to information security, I want us to look at the elements of the triad. So we've got confidentiality. Obviously, confidentiality speaks about who has access to the information, who can see the information, and what are the role-based functionalities when it comes to accessing that information. So for instance, part of the elements of confidentiality speaks to how do you then encrypt the data once the data has been processed into your system. We're going to be looking, so we look at encryption like the hashing, the asymmetric keys, and obviously we look at role-based to like I think it was Bernard that said that not everyone has the same condition when it comes to access to information. So roles are actually based upon hierarchy in seniority, and they're actually based on the type of role that you have within that organization. So another thing we look at what is the data available to authorized personnel. So for instance, the same permissions that the security guard has are not the same permissions that maybe a compliance officer or a person who's processing a loan has. So hence now we have what is called a role-based action, a role-based action. And we look at things like your RFAC and your IPAC and your IPAC as well, which seeks to understand that your roles can only that you have access to within the organization. So confidentiality. So when you build your system, so the best way to actually implement privacy or security within the information that you have is to enable the CIA triad. So what you do is you segment the information that you have in the elements based on confidentiality, integrity, and availability. When we look at integrity speaks about the information received and how secure is the information that you're processing. For instance, integrity looks at issues like data tampering. So sometimes it happens that when a data inputs information into your system, it gets modified after submission. So now, once you integrate elements like integrity, it assures that the data that is processed is data which is secure, and it's data which is correct. So most of the data that we process is the data that is being given by the data subject. So for instance, if I enter my ID number, and somehow the system changes it, or maybe it's a human error or it's a system error, so now the integrity element of the CIA triad has been breached altogether. So you as a developer, you need to come up with a way, or rather with a system, or with the authentication principle that seeks to address integrity issues into the product that you're building and into the information. Because now, once the information has been diluted, and maybe we have issues of non-repudiation when it comes to the information, it's no longer the data. It's no longer clean, So we need to integrate integrity when it comes to how we process the information and information as well. So integrity again look at subject to authorized modification. For instance, if I go apply for a loan, at Capitec, and the bank decides to change my address without my consent. So now we're looking at the fact that my authorization has been infringed. I did not authorize for my information to be changed, and so the normal principle is the bank calling me to confirm if the information is still the same, or maybe like they perform acts such as they want to know, do I still stay there? I'm just looking for the specific word that keeps on, that I keep on forgetting, what the banks usually do to confirm if the information is still correct, because now they want to confirm, and avoid situations like modifications of information. And we've got another issue when it we have information, and the information is then processed incorrectly, and the person who's denies that, look, I'm the one who processed it, because now maybe there's a data breach or the system has been brought to its knees. So we also need to practice non-repudiation in the company, and make sure that we do have systems in place to avoid unauthorized modification of data that is being fed into the system by users. And availability, what then availability looks at is actually how available is the system, how available is the data. For instance, if ever we have a data breach, soon can how soon can the systems go back, how soon can people start working, and how soon can information start being processed again. For instance, an example, when City of Johannesburg was hacked, there was an issue when it came to maintenance concept, because the system has to be available in a specific time. So if we get hacked at 9, maybe by 4 or 5, the system has to be back up. So that is all dependent on the business continuity plan that organizations need to have as well. And the business continuity plan as well needs to be integrated within your organization. If you're building a system that talks about or maybe that aims to assist farmers, maybe they check what time will the water be back, how do we grow crops and stuff like that. So now if we have the business continuity plan, it tells that listen, we can only be down for this much, because now this information is it has to be available within a specific margin. So things like maintenance concepts, they have to be integrated within your solution. And it's very crucial. Kitumeti spoke about the business continuity plan, which each and every organization needs to have. And this also speaks with your solution that you're building as well. You also need to have elements of the BCP as well. Also need to look at things like the failover. How long does it take for you to be back up again? And I think it was Bernard that spoke about zero trust, you see. And so when it comes to availability, these are the concepts, or rather the elements that we look at into the CIA triad. And we also need to look at redundancy too, how redundant our systems, how many times do we actually cleanse and sanitize the data that we have, and are we able to back up the information that we have. And in terms of the CIA triad, it's very important for us to know, or rather to understand privileges, and to understand issues like redundancy, issues like availability and integrity as well. So now we're gonna look at privileges. So privileges, it's actually access. Who has access to specific information, and what security elements can we actually put in? So for instance, I'm a bank. I know that we've got physical access, which is the security. We've got administrative, security, and which is your policies, your standards and your regulations as well. And we have, your technical solutions, which look at your firewalls and all those technical elements that come into assisting your solution against being hacked. So when it comes to your SLDC, in fact, when it comes to infrastructure and architecture, integrating this will actually assist you into checking what needs to go where in terms of hierarchy. So I really recommend this when it comes into SLDC. It should actually be a lifestyle when it comes to designing systems, because it tells how do you map up the availability and integrity and confidentiality of the data that is poured into your system. And we're gonna look at the top 3 most most common, or rather most important compliance requirements. We have quite a lot, but these are actually the top 3. So what I did Papaya in GDPR to them, they provide data subject with extensive rights in dealing with their personal information. So they are similar and they are different in certain ways. So, but both of them seek to address one issue: how do we then process personal information? Like Papaya has 8 conditions that developers or data processing companies needs to adhere to, as to how is the data processed, do we have consent, and how is it stored, and the right, for the data officer, or rather not for the data officer, but the right for the data consumer, the PI, to say, listen, I want my information to be deleted. But we do have industries just like the mining. Mines are required by law to keep information for about 14 years, and banks are required to keep information, I think it's lifetime, if I'm not mistaken. But each and every industry has different ways in which how they process the data and how they keep the data itself. And we're looking at the payment card industry data security standard. So this one is actually very specific to solutions, like maybe if you're a shop, if it's an e-commerce site, maybe your solution, it has a portion whereby you need to process card information, or maybe it's a subscription model and stuff like that. You need to integrate, and you need to have the payment card industry data security standard in place. So most of the elements of the PCI DDS is actually, you need to build and maintain a secure network systems. So now that speaks to what you are building. It has to be secured, because you're dealing with highly sensitive data, and how you collect cardholder data. How do you encrypt that data? What kind of keys do you use to encrypt that data? And where is it stored as well, and what security or what assurance do you give the person that you're collecting the data from, that the data is going to be secure? So all of these have to be outlined within your solution. So part of the Papaya Act was that most website, they need to have a cookie and a privacy statement. So it's crucial that when you do your contract, to kind of like have that privacy policy embedded on it, so that your users do understand what they are signing up to. And one of the most important elements of the PSI is, you need to maintain a vulnerability management program. So how do you then have this program? How do you manage it? What happens when you get hacked? Where's this information stored? How do you speak to, or how do you contact, the data holders, and how do you tell them that their data has been breached? And what is the plan? What is your business recovery plan? What do you do when an incident happens? So it's crucial for you guys to have simulations within your company that, listen, when we get hacked, down, do you then segregate system and you put them into quarantine, or until you fix them up? How do you deal with 0-day vulnerabilities? And we also have HIPAA, which is the Health Insurance Probability and Accountability Act. So HIPAA is very crucial when you're building a system that speaks to the health industry. There are a lot of companies in the US and Europe that have been HIPAA, and how you process medical records is as important as processing card payment details. And one of the elements that I really want to speak about, how do we then better regulate electronic protected health information? Because we don't want situations whereby your system, once it has been breached or in an event of a data, or rather a hack, we can see everyone's data information. You can see their health records and health insurance records. How do you then now protect that information? Do you use a hierarchy standard? Do you use the CIA trial, or you just build because we are building and you want to get a system up and running? So these are the type of compliance requirements that we need to have into place. And I just wanted to touch more on the types of regulations and standards that each and every company has. So we have a regulation, which is a government act that everyone needs to abide by. We've got a standard. It's industry standards, like your ISO 2701, which speaks about information security. And we've got guidelines. So guidelines are mostly in your company, like how you plug the computer, how you need to speak to certain people, how you do things. And we also have policies. So policies actually are written by the company. For instance, we've got maybe you bring your own device, or we have your security policy that speaks about how information and infrastructure need to be protected within the organization. So so most of the time, what I've come to understand is that guidelines and procedures, most people don't actually take them into consideration, because it's either an option to use a guideline or a procedure. But more than anything, what's most important to use within your organization is to use the regulation, is to use standards. These are the top three, compliance regulatory requirements that developers need to adhere to. I don't know if I still have time, or I just went out of exhausted. My teeth. Can you guys hear me? All right, great. So yeah.
Oh yes, you still have time.
Okay, all right. You guys actually scared me for a second, because I thought I was speaking to myself. So this is the end of it. Because of the interest of time, I really wanted to dive deep and talk about, what the CIA trial can actually do for your development, But nonetheless, I think after the SLDC, this must also be one of the biggest industry players, or rather elements that we integrate into building our systems. Because for beginners, once they use the CIA trial, they understand how to best segment their data, that they collect and how they use it, so that it can become available. And it's crucial for us to understand and segment the roles, because not everyone has the same role as the next person. And when it comes to confidentiality, one of the critical aspects of confidentiality is actually checking your roles and integrity as well. So when we go back to process this data, let's just have it in mind. Thank you so much, guys. I can take questions now.
All right, we'll have 10
Uh,
minutes.
All right, we'll have 10 minutes.
10 minutes for questions.
10 minutes for questions.
Nick.
Yeah, boy, I'm back again. Sorry for the previous glitch again. Okay, we are opening for pop questions, clarities, ironing ups of everything. So the platform is open for question. Let's use the formality of hand raising, and as always, then we'll acknowledge you, and then you'll definitely push your question to the relevant person. Hands.
Bernard, I don't know if I can take your question, but yeah, let's go.
And it was a clap hands. However, I would like to say, yeah, it was very insightful, like being able to differentiate such as a developer or as someone within the quorum. Like it is very, 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 very like once you can differentiate and know which suits where, I'm telling you, a killing machine. Thanks.
Thank you, Bernard. Thank you so much. Next question, please.
Well, seems like you are on point. You stood everyone to. Oh, we have a big hand.
Fossil. Okay, let's go.
Okay, I hope it's just a big hand and not a big. Now I love that. Okay, we didn't rehearse this. We started the 3 previous presentations without talking to you, Doreen, so apologies for that. However, you joined the bits we missed very elegantly. I was just commenting in line to Bernard. It's all about getting the right things done at the right time in the right place. So me starting about what have we forgotten, you basically completed the loop by saying this is the things you need to remember. Hardly anything in your presentation about the design. But if you forget all of these items, your design is going to be embarrassingly complicated and probably more expensive than you thought. So thank you for keeping us honest. You completed the circuit.
Most definitely, that's what I've been saying about all this time. Everyone is complimenting one another about the progress. When the one ends here, the other one continues further. It's like an of information. So most definitely. Another hand again. Eva, which are you directing to Miss Doreen or to everyone?
Miss Doreen.
Okay.
Thank you so much. Ms. Doreen, can you just explain to the participants what do I do, how to handle open source data? Because data can be available, readily available, but according to the law, how am I violating the law in terms of how I handle the data? Somebody might be saying, okay, when it comes to SPU data, student data, I need access, I need to sign certain documents to be able to handle that data. But there's data readily available online. How do I know that I'm not violating, I'm using the data as is expected?
Thank you so much, Eva, for that question. So, when it comes to open access data, we need to understand it's data which is readily available and anyone can access or anyone can use it. So industries and individuals can use any data, for any desired purpose. But we also need to take this with a pinch of salt and understand that, this data excludes sensitive data, and it excludes data which can be used in terms of competition as well. But more than anything, it's actually important for you to go back to the CIA triad and understand that where does this data, where is it sourced from? What are the means? Is it legally data? It's legal data, or it's data that was found in the dark web as well. And we also need to understand the consent, principles of the data that you're using. For instance, I was watching an episode of Cata Blanche the other day, and I saw how people actually sell our information to call centers. Like they have, files and files of data, and that data is actually illegal to use. So if you're using open source data, just make sure that you go to the terms and conditions, and it's clearly defined that this data was legally, can be used by anybody. It does not have any, legal bearings into it. And more than anything, the integrity of the data has been confirmed. Data, at least use data that is correct, and that is clean as well, and data that is accurate. So I hope that answers your question.
Thank you so much. It does.
Thank you, guys.
Okay. That was thoroughly answerful. I hope everyone is noting. You have a hand from the pool.
The platform is yours.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
All right. Thank you so much, colleagues, for a good presentation. So I'm just popping out the similar question previously from Pitumeti to Bernard now. I'm an SMMEs in building a solution for cybersecurity solutions. So I'm directing this one to Mr. Bernard for Transnet. Mr. Bernard, I've built some cybersecurity solutions, and then I was looking at the Transnet challenges and also the MTN one. And how can I get it to you, Mr. Bernard? It's not just only cyber, but also linked to also physical security, but it's that with cybersecurity linked to physical, solving your challenges.
Yeah, Dipo, thank you for that question. As it comes within that, I'm actually representing a certain company, but since Transnet is the company that I work for, unfortunately, I will not be able to advise as to how do you approach such controls, especially security controls, because we are in such a public, to say, platform. However, such questions, if you would like to engage, you can engage them through the Transnet contact details, and it's very good that such flows that you are seeing, if they are accurately reported, they can be attended to. But unfortunately for Transnet, I cannot answer anything. Thank you very much for that question, though. I can only answer for the session that we are having.
Okay, thank you so much, sir. I understand.
All right, Nick,
If I may. We are going to take a 1 hour break,
and then
we'll return
with
the
data
science and machine learning session
at 1
at 1 p.m.
So please,
enjoy lunch, make coffee, and we shall return back
at
1 p.m. 1 p.m.
Someone
is accusing me that I've been pronouncing things wrong and saying wrong things. Yeah.
We'll be back
at 1 p.m. Cheers, ladies and gentlemen.